Chicago mornings were usually a blend of noise, motion, and cold air whipping between towering glass buildings. But this particular morning carried a strange tension, as if the city itself sensed something unusual was about to happen. Inside the sleek marble lobby of the Hayes Global headquarters, employees rushed to their elevators, coffees in hand, badges blinking green as they checked in for another demanding day. The usual chatter filled the space, until a small figure caught the attention of the front desk security officer. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. A small black girl, her tight curls tied in a slightly crooked pink bow, stood clutching the straps of a faded school backpack. Her shoes were wet from the slush outside. Her eyes, large and hesitant yet determined, scanned the lobby as though she had practiced her mission again and again on the way there. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" the security officer asked, softening his tone. The girl shook her head without blinking. "I'm looking for Mr. Jonathan Hayes." The man blinked, unsure if he heard correctly. "Mr. Hayes? As in Jonathan Hayes? The CEO?" She nodded again, her face still serious. "Yes. I need to ask him something important." The officer exchanged a look with the receptionist. Children didn't walk into billion-dollar corporate buildings and request CEOs like they were asking for a pencil. Something was off, yet something about her eyes made it impossible to simply send her away. "And what's your name?" the receptionist asked gently. "Maya. Maya Carter." "Well, Maya, Mr. Hayes is a very busy man. People book appointments with him months in advance." "It's an emergency," Maya said, her voice suddenly trembling. "Please. I have to ask him something before it's too late." The receptionist hesitated. Something about her sincerity, her urgency, made it difficult to dismiss her. With a sigh, she picked up the phone and dialed the executive assistant on the 45th floor. A few minutes later, the call was transferred directly to Jonathan Hayes himself. When Jonathan answered, his tone was already laced with annoyance. "What is it?" "I said no interruptions this morning." "Sir," the receptionist said quietly, "there's a little girl here asking for you by name. She says it's urgent." "A child?" Jonathan's brows knit together. "Oh, is this some kind of stunt?" "No, sir. Her name is Maya Carter. She's alone." Jonathan exhaled sharply. "Send her up. And someone escort her so she doesn't wander off." As Maya was led into the private elevator, she pressed her lips together, anxiety twisting in her stomach. She wasn't supposed to be scared. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry, not today. Today she had to be brave for her mother. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped onto a luxurious floor filled with glass partitions, expensive artwork, and the crisp scent of polished chrome. Jonathan's assistant, a middle-aged woman named Sharon, guided her into the CEO's office. Jonathan Hayes stood near the floor-to-ceiling window, his back turned to the door. Tall, sharply dressed in a charcoal suit, he radiated power and authority. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his early 40s with tired eyes and a jaw set with permanent tension. He finally turned around and froze. A child, alone, stood in the middle of his office, looking up at him with the kind of eyes he hadn't seen in years, hopeful, frightened, desperate. Jonathan cleared his throat. "You must be Maya?" "Yes, sir." "And what brings you here? Did you lose your parents? Do you need help calling home?" Maya swallowed hard. Her small hands trembled. "No, sir. I know exactly why I'm here." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "All right. Go ahead." The room felt impossibly big around her. She took a step forward, her voice thin but determined. "Sir, can you marry my mom, so she won't die of sadness?" The world seemed to stop. Jonathan blinked, convinced he misheard. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Maya's eyes filled with tears she tried to hold back. "My mom is sad all the time. She cries when she thinks I'm asleep. She works too much, and she's alone. She doesn't say it, but I know she's hurting inside. I'm scared something bad will happen to her. I'm scared I'll lose her." Her voice cracked. Jonathan, despite his usual emotional distance, felt something shift inside him. A tightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. "Sweetheart," he said slowly, "why come to me? You don't even know me." Maya nodded quickly. "I know, but I heard people talking. They said you're one of the richest men in Chicago, and rich men can fix things. They can help people. You look like someone who could make her smile again." Jonathan stood there speechless. He was used to people asking him for money, partnerships, influence, favors, but marriage? From a child? It was absurd. And yet, her words had pierced him deeper than any boardroom betrayal ever had. Maya, he said, choosing his words carefully, I'm sure your mother is a very strong woman. People go through sad times. She's not okay. Maya blurted out suddenly. She tries to be. She hides it. But I see it. Every night. She keeps pictures of my dad in a drawer but never looks at them. She works double shifts at the hospital and still can't sleep. She's lonely, sir. And when people get too lonely, they stop wanting to be alive. Tears streamed down her cheeks now. Jonathan felt a chill run through him. He had seen loneliness. He had lived in it. He recognized it in others instantly. But he had never imagined a child carrying such fear. Please, Maya whispered. I'm begging you. I don't want her to die of sadness. I can't lose her. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. Jonathan finally knelt down so he was eye level with her. Maya, I can't just marry someone I've never met. That's not how things work. Her face fell. But, he continued gently, I can meet her. I can check on her. I can make sure she's all right. You have my word. Maya looked up, her eyes shining with a glimmer of hope. You'll meet her? Really? I will, Jonathan promised. Let me take you home so I can talk to your mom. Just then Sharon knocked on the door. Mr. Hayes, you have a press call in 10 minutes. Cancel it, Jonathan said without looking back. Clear the morning. Sharon's eyes widened. He never canceled anything. As Jonathan led Maya out of the office, something shifted inside him. A feeling he couldn't quite name yet, but one that would soon turn his entire life upside down. Because in just a few hours, when he stepped into Samantha Carter's apartment in Evanston, he would realize that Maya's mother was connected to him in a way neither of them could have imagined. Jonathan Hayes had always believed that success would fill the hollow spaces inside him. That was the lie he fed himself throughout his 20s and 30s, through every business deal, every acquisition, every sleepless night spent building Hayes Global from a tiny startup into one of the most powerful tech corporations in the country. Now at 43 he owned 3 companies, a private jet, half a dozen penthouses across the United States, and a reputation that other CEOs envied. But none of it made his penthouse in downtown Chicago feel any less empty when he returned home at night. After dropping Maya off outside her apartment and promising to return later, Jonathan rode the elevator up to his own world of polished steel and silence. The penthouse sat on the top floor of a luxury tower overlooking Lake Michigan. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the space like a glass crown, letting in panoramic views of the city. Expensive modern art hung on the walls, pieces he purchased because his interior designer insisted, not because he liked or understood them. The place was immaculate, almost showroom-like, but not because he enjoyed neatness. There simply wasn't anything to disturb. No toys. No laughter. No signs of life beyond the untouched furniture and sterile decor. Jonathan slipped off his coat, loosened his tie, and walked to the kitchen. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. He reached for a bottle of sparkling water, twisted the cap off, and leaned against the counter. Maya's words replayed in his mind like a loop he couldn't turn off. Sir, can you marry my mom so she won't die of sadness? No board meeting had ever made him feel so unprepared. No hostile takeover had ever left him so confused. The girl's fear was real. Her desperation was real. And the part that haunted him most was how familiar it felt. Loneliness. He knew it well. And he hated that an 8-year-old carried it like a weight on her tiny shoulders. Jonathan walked into the living room where one entire wall was made of framed newspaper articles, awards and magazine covers, 40 under 40 innovators, Tech Visionary of the Year, Chicago's most powerful man under 50. He stared at one headline in particular. Jonathan Hayes, the man who built an empire alone. At the time he had thought the article sounded impressive. Now it felt like a reminder of everything he didn't have. He pressed a hand to the back of his neck, feeling tension coil through him. His life was a long staircase of achievements, but none of those steps had led him to genuine connection. No wife. No children. No family dinners. No one waiting for him when he came home. He had buried himself in work for so many years that the quiet no longer felt peaceful. It felt punishing. Jonathan moved to the window and stared down at the bustling city far below. People crossed streets, talked on phones, laughed with friends, lived their messy, imperfect human lives. For a moment he envied them. All of them. Even the ones who didn't know what tomorrow would bring. That's when his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant, Sharon. "Sir, do you want me to reschedule the press call you canceled? They're requesting a new time." Jonathan typed back. "No. I'll get back to them when I can." Another message appeared seconds later. "Is everything okay?" He stared at the screen before typing. "I don't know." He set the phone down and exhaled slowly. Something about that little girl had shaken him more deeply than he wanted to admit. It wasn't the request itself, it was the fear behind her eyes. Fear he had seen in his own reflection once upon a time, when he was a young man trying to escape the shadows of a father who only cared about money and a mother who drowned in sadness after being abandoned emotionally by her own husband. He remembered sitting in his childhood bedroom at 13, listening to his parents argue about the business deals that mattered more to his father than their family. He remembered the day his mother quietly packed her things and left without saying goodbye. He remembered his father insisting that emotions were weakness. He learned early on that money didn't fix broken hearts. But what struck him was how fiercely Maya believed otherwise. To her, wealth meant safety, stability, protection. A man like him could protect her mother from sadness, from exhaustion, from collapse. Her innocence wasn't naive, it was heartbreaking. Jonathan turned from the window and walked to his home office, where blueprints of upcoming projects lay scattered across the desk. Normally he would have thrown himself into work. That was his escape, his drug, his shield. But today the documents felt meaningless. He picked up a framed photograph from the corner of the desk, an old picture of him and his former business partner, Derek Shaw. They were younger, smiling, celebrating the launch of their first company. Back when Jonathan believed loyalty was unbreakable. Back before betrayal. He set the photo face down quickly as if touching it burned him. A strange unease crept into his mind. Something about Maya's mother? Who was she? What kind of sadness was she drowning in? And why did Maya feel it was getting worse? Jonathan didn't like unknowns. In business he eliminated them immediately. But this wasn't a contract or negotiation. This was a family he didn't know, yet somehow felt pulled toward. He glanced at the clock. It was nearly noon. He had promised Maya he would return to meet her mother today. The idea made his heartbeat quicken in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. Not fear, not excitement, but something between curiosity and responsibility. He grabbed his coat again and headed to the private elevator. As the elevator descended, he caught his reflection in the mirrored doors. He didn't look like a man preparing for a business meeting. He looked like someone about to step into something unpredictable. Something human. When he reached the parking garage, his driver opened the car door for him. "Where to, sir?" Jonathan hesitated. For the first time in years he was going somewhere without a plan. Without an agenda. Without a calculated objective. "Evanston," he finally said. The car pulled out of the garage and into the Chicago streets. The winter air fogged the windows as they drove north toward the smaller suburban neighborhood Maya called home. Jonathan felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest, a feeling that made him uneasy and strangely hopeful at the same time. Because deep down he knew this wasn't just a visit. It was the beginning of something that would change everything he thought he knew about life. And when he finally arrived outside Samantha Carter's apartment building, he had no idea that the moment she opened the door, his past was about to stare him right in the face. Samantha Carter sat at the small wooden table in her modest Evanston apartment, staring at the open laptop glowing in front of her. Her nursing shift had ended just 3 hours earlier, yet she was already reviewing patient notes for tomorrow, typing through exhaustion that made her eyes blur every few seconds. A half-finished cup of coffee sat beside her, long gone cold. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest. The kind that reminds you of everything missing. Maya was in her room humming faintly, coloring something on the floor. Samantha listened to her daughter's soft voice echoing through the cracked door. The sound always warmed her heart and broke it at the same time. Samantha rubbed her forehead with trembling fingers. "Hold it together," she whispered to herself. "Just keep going." But going felt harder every day. It had been 7 years since Maya's father disappeared. 7 years since Samantha learned how cruel love could be when placed in the wrong hands. And even after all this time, the wounds had never really healed. They had simply become part of the fabric of her life, heavy and constantly pulling at her. Bills stacked on the counter. The rent had increased again. Groceries were tighter this month. The hospital kept requiring overtime but rarely compensated her enough to keep up. And loneliness was a shadow she could never shake. She worked double shifts to keep food on the table. She smiled for Maya even when her heart felt like it was cracking. She became strong because she had no other choice. But today she felt unusually fragile. Last night, after Maya fell asleep, Samantha had sat at the kitchen table and quietly cried. She was careful, always careful, not to let her daughter see. But her body shook with the kind of grief that doesn't come from a single event, but from years of carrying everything alone. She didn't know Maya had overheard her. She didn't know her daughter had crept to the doorway, watching her mother's quiet breakdown with wide, terrified eyes. She didn't know that Maya had spent the whole night making a plan, one that led her straight into the corporate headquarters of a billionaire. Samantha wiped her face again, forcing her breathing to steady. She couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not ever. Maya depended on her. Her little girl needed her strong. Just then a soft knock sounded at the front door. Samantha frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. She stood slowly, pressing a hand to her lower back. Too many hours spent bending over patients, lifting, helping, running. "Maya," she called gently. "Stay in your room for a moment, sweetheart." "Okay, Mommy." Maya responded cheerfully, having already returned to coloring. Samantha walked to the door and peeked through the peephole. Her entire body froze. A man in a tailored coat stood in the hallway. Tall, broad-shouldered, clean-cut. His presence alone seemed to command the dull, narrow corridor. And he was staring directly at her door as if he had been waiting for her to look. Samantha stiffened, instinctively stepping back. She didn't recognize him, did she? Taking a steadying breath, she opened the door a few inches. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. The man offered a polite, almost hesitant smile. "Miss Carter? I'm Jonathan Hayes." Her breath caught in her throat. Jonathan Hayes, the billionaire whose face appeared on Chicago magazines. The CEO she saw on TV during business interviews. The man whose company practically powered half the city's tech infrastructure. And he was standing outside her apartment. Samantha blinked. I'm sorry, what? Why are you here?" Jonathan shifted slightly, his expression gentler than she expected. "I came to talk to you about your daughter." Her heart stopped. "Maya? Is she okay?" she asked urgently, already grabbing the doorknob tighter. "She's fine," he assured quickly. "She came to see me this morning. At my office." Samantha felt dizzy for a second. "She what?" Jonathan raised both hands in a calm, placating gesture. "Don't worry. She wasn't in any danger. She walked into my building, and she asked for me by name." Samantha stared at him, confused and horrified. Maya had gone downtown? Alone? What? Oh. Jonathan continued softly, "She told me something that I think you need to hear." Samantha opened the door wider, her face pale with anxiety. "Please, come in." The moment Jonathan stepped inside, he felt something warm settle in his chest. The apartment was small, but it felt lived in. Cozy. Real. A scented candle flickered on the counter. A stack of children's books sat near the couch. The aroma of cinnamon from a recent breakfast still lingered. This home had love in it, something his penthouse never had. Samantha stood in front of him, nervous but composed. "Please tell me what she said. I need to know." Jonathan took a careful breath. "She asked me if I would marry you." Samantha's lips parted slightly. Her breath hitched. She what?" "She said she was afraid you were drowning in sadness. That you might fall apart." He paused. "She doesn't want to lose you." Samantha's hand flew to her mouth as tears sprang to her eyes. She took a step back, shaking her head. Oh God, she saw me last night. She must have. Her voice cracked with embarrassment and heartbreak. Jonathan watched her silently, feeling something tug deep inside him. This woman, this stranger, was carrying a world of pain all by herself. I'm sorry, she whispered, wiping her cheeks. I didn't mean for her to see. I never want Maya to feel like she's responsible for me. Jonathan stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. Miss Carter, she loves you more than anything. And she's terrified of losing you. That's why she came to me. Samantha sank onto the couch, her entire body trembling with emotion. I didn't know my sadness was hurting her like that. I try so hard to hide it. You're doing your best, Jonathan said softly. She looked up at him then, and for the first time Jonathan saw her clearly. Her tired eyes. Her soft, natural beauty. The quiet strength in her posture despite how fragile she felt. And something inside him shifted. I don't understand why she thought coming to you was the answer, Samantha whispered. Jonathan hesitated. Because she believes a man like me can fix everything, he said quietly. And that level of faith, it broke my heart. Silence filled the room. Then from the hallway a small voice spoke. Mommy? Maya peeked around the corner, holding her stuffed bunny. When she saw Jonathan, she froze, wide-eyed and guilty. Maya, Samantha said gently but firmly. Come here. The little girl stepped forward slowly, her head bowed. Jonathan watched her, feeling a strange warmth rise within him. Why didn't you tell me where you were going? Samantha asked, kneeling to face her daughter. Maya's lips trembled. Because I didn't want you to cry again. Samantha pulled her into a tight embrace, tears sliding down her cheeks. Jonathan turned slightly away, giving them a moment, but his heart thumped with something he didn't understand. This family, this fragile, beautiful little family, stirred something deep inside him. Something he hadn't felt in decades. And when Samantha finally looked up at him again, her eyes filled with gratitude and unspoken fear, he realized something unsettling. He wasn't just here for Maya's sake. Something in this apartment, in this woman, in this child, was pulling him in. And nothing in his life had ever prepared him for what he was about to feel next. The morning sun filtered through the dusty blinds of their tiny apartment, bringing with it the faint hum of traffic from the streets below. The cities in New Jersey never really slept. At best, they just took short naps. For Janelle, the sound was comforting. It reminded her the world was still moving, even when worry tried to freeze her in place. But for Tiana, that morning comfort didn't land the same way. She sat cross-legged on the worn-out rug, trying to focus on her homework, but her eyes kept drifting to the kitchen, where her mother stood silently, staring at the open refrigerator. It was empty, except for half a carton of eggs and a bottle of water. The kind of empty that makes silence feel heavier. Mom? Tiana asked quietly. Janelle flinched as if caught doing something she shouldn't. She turned quickly and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hey baby, you ready for school? Tiana simply nodded, but her chest tightened. She had seen this look before, the look her mother wore after her father died, the one that said she was trying not to break. But today something felt different. Tiana swallowed hard. Are you feeling okay, Mom? Janelle's smile wavered, but she didn't answer. She didn't need to. The dark circles under her eyes, the tremble in her fingers, and the way her shoulders slumped forward said everything. Tiana didn't press her, not today, but she made a silent promise to herself. She would find help no matter what it took. Later that day, Tiana stayed late after school. She wasn't avoiding home, necessarily, but she also wasn't in a rush to walk back into that quiet apartment filled with silent sadness. Instead, she wandered through the community center across from campus. Every Wednesday evening, they hosted an open-space bookstore event where people donated used books. She wasn't looking for books. She was looking for answers she couldn't ask anyone else. She skimmed through titles, psychology, grief counseling, children of loss, but everything felt too overwhelming for an 11-year-old. Then she heard a voice behind her, deep but warm. You like stories or you just pretending to read them? Tiana turned sharply. A man stood a few feet away holding a cup of coffee. He looked out of place among the worn furniture and cheap shelves, dressed in a crisp charcoal coat, polished brown shoes, and a watch that gleamed like polished silver. His dark curls were neatly trimmed, and he carried a gentle expression that wasn't invasive, just curious. "Oh, I'm just looking," Tiana muttered. "Fair enough," he said with a small smile. "You from around here? Haven't seen you before." "I live 2 blocks away," she replied cautiously. "Why?" He chuckled. "Because I'm terrible with faces, but I'm even worse at pretending I'm not lost." He lifted a pamphlet. "Apparently there's supposed to be an entrepreneurship event here, but I'm guessing I misread the schedule." Tiana blinked. "That's on Saturdays." "Ah," he sighed dramatically, placing a hand over his heart. "Tragic." Against her will, a tiny smile tugged at her lips. The stranger's humor wasn't loud or showy. It felt safe. He extended a hand. "I'm Devin Harrison." The name hit her like a small jolt. She had seen that name somewhere, maybe the news? A magazine cover? But she couldn't place it. She shook his hand hesitantly. "I'm Tiana." "That's a strong name," he said. "Means princess, right?" She nodded slowly. "So," he continued, leaning against the shelf, "what brings a princess to the dusty aisles of the community center bookstore?" Tiana hesitated. Her instinct said don't talk too much to strangers, a rule her mother drilled into her. But something about him felt different. Not pushy. Not threatening. Just patient. "I'm looking for something to help my mom," she admitted quietly. Devin's expression softened. "Is she sick?" Tiana shook her head. "She's sad. Really sad." He nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "Sadness can be heavier than sickness sometimes." Tiana's throat tightened. "She's been like this a long time. Since my dad passed." The moment the words slipped out, she regretted saying them. But Devin didn't stare or pity her. He simply tilted his head gently, as if acknowledging a truth instead of dramatizing it. "I'm sorry, Tiana," he said softly. "Losing someone you love changes everything." Her eyes widened a little. "You've lost someone too?" "Yeah," he said, looking away for a moment. "A long time ago." There was a weight in his voice, something real. Not the kind of dramatic sadness adults fake to relate to kids. They stood there quietly for a moment before Devin gestured toward the door. "You on your way home?" "It's getting late." Tiana blinked. "I'm okay. It's not far." "I'll walk you," he said. Then quickly added, "at a distance. So I don't freak your mom out." Tiana let out the tiniest laugh. Even she was surprised by it. "Okay." On the walk home, Devin walked on the opposite side of the sidewalk like he promised, hands in his coat pockets. The sky had started to turn shades of orange and purple. "You know," he said, "my mom used to have these dips. Weeks where she barely spoke. When I was a kid, I didn't understand it. I thought it was my fault." Tiana stopped walking. "Me too." He nodded like he expected that answer. "But here's what I learned," he continued. "Sometimes moms carry pain they don't know how to put into words. And sometimes, the right support can change everything." Tiana looked ahead. "I want to help her. But I don't know how." "Maybe," he said slowly, "you don't have to do it alone." They reached the corner near her apartment complex. Tiana turned to him. "Thanks for walking me." He smiled. "Anytime. And hey, if you ever need someone to talk to, the community center sees me every week accidentally walking into the wrong events." Tiana giggled. "Okay." He waved and walked back toward the main street. But before he disappeared into the crowd, Tiana called out, "Mr. Devin." He turned. "Why were you really at the community center?" He paused, too long for it to be casual. His expression shifted, subtle but noticeable. "Just looking for something too, I guess." Then he walked away. Tiana didn't know it yet, but that moment, meeting the stranger with the silver watch, would change everything in her life. She also didn't know the truth she would discover later. Devin wasn't lost. He wasn't wandering. He had been looking for her. A revelation that would shake the story to its core. The elevator hummed softly as it climbed to the 45th floor of Hayes Global Headquarters. Jonathan Hayes stood quietly, staring at the polished steel doors as though they could tell him what was coming. Beside him, Maya tugged nervously at her backpack strap, glancing up at him with an expression that blended hope, fear, and a determination no child should have had to muster. "You really think this is a good idea?" Jonathan asked quietly, though his tone wasn't sharp. It carried curiosity and concern. Maya nodded firmly. "Yes, I promise. Mom, she'll be okay if you meet her. You'll see." Jonathan exhaled and ran a hand through his hair. He knew she was right. At this point, her happiness was pulling him into a territory he hadn't stepped into in decades. A territory of real emotion, unpredictability, and risk. The elevator doors opened. Jonathan gestured for Maya to step out first. She moved with a cautious energy, her small frame navigating the luxurious office space with wide-eyed curiosity. He followed, scanning the environment, the expensive art, the sleek furniture, the hum of a space designed for power and control. Yet none of it intimidated Maya. She marched straight to the glass-walled office and pushed the door open, stepping inside like she had claimed the space by right. Inside, Jonathan's assistant Sharon waited, clipboard in hand. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in the child standing confidently in front of her. "Maya, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of exasperation and amusement. "She's here to meet me," Jonathan said calmly, watching the interaction. Sharon blinked. "Meet you?" Jonathan didn't answer. He didn't have to. His attention was already focused on the approaching figure from behind Maya. And then she walked in, the woman who had captured the young girl's heart, the mother whose sadness had become the reason Jonathan's chest tightened in ways business deals never had. Samantha Carter. She froze for a moment at the threshold, taking in the glossy office, the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the tall man standing there with an aura of authority. Her first instinct was to back away, thinking perhaps Maya had misunderstood something. But the child's pleading eyes anchored her in place. "Mom?" Maya whispered softly. Samantha's gaze softened, torn between disbelief and curiosity. "Maya, what, how did?" She trailed off, glancing at Jonathan. "Who is this?" Jonathan stepped forward slowly, offering a hand with a calm, polite smile. "Miss Carter. I'm Jonathan Hayes. Your daughter mentioned you might like to meet me." Samantha's eyes narrowed slightly, skepticism overtaking her initial shock. "My daughter mentioned me meeting a billionaire?" "Yes," Maya chimed in quickly. "Please, Mom. He's going to help. I want you to be happy again." Samantha's chest tightened and she shifted her weight nervously. She wasn't used to strangers, certainly not men in suits whose wealth could buy and sell people's futures, offering concern for her well-being. And yet, something in Jonathan's demeanor suggested sincerity. Something she couldn't quite name. "All right," Samantha said finally, taking a cautious step forward. "Let's talk." Jonathan gestured to the seating area, a set of comfortable leather chairs arranged near the panoramic windows. Maya scampered ahead, taking the seat closest to her mother, gripping her stuffed bunny tightly. Samantha lowered herself into the chair, her posture guarded but curious. "So, you're the one she's been talking about," she said softly, glancing at Jonathan. "You know, she doesn't normally share her feelings with anyone, but I think she's desperate." Jonathan nodded, his expression gentle. "I understand. And I want to be clear. I'm not here to replace anyone. Not her father. Not anyone in her life. I'm just someone willing to help if I can." Samantha studied him carefully, reading every line of his face, every detail of his posture. She sensed honesty in a way that defied his public persona. Here was a man who could command rooms, manipulate markets, and make millions, yet now he seemed vulnerable in a very human way, vulnerable because he cared. Maya leaned forward, eyes wide. "Mom, he really means it. I think he can make things better." Samantha exhaled slowly, her fingers brushing the edge of her coffee mug, cold from sitting too long. She had lived most of her adult life managing pain alone, building walls so high that very few could see the cracks. And yet, in this room, in the presence of a man she didn't know and a child she adored, she felt the walls start to tremble. "You realize," she started, hesitating, "that this is unusual. And, frankly, a little impossible." Jonathan smiled faintly. "Life is full of the impossible. Sometimes, it just takes someone brave enough, or desperate enough, to try." Maya's small hand reached for her mother's. "Mom, please." Samantha's resolve weakened. She had spent years protecting Maya from the harsh realities of the world, shielding her from the financial struggles, the loneliness, and the grief that had shaped her life. And now, here was her daughter, pleading for happiness in a way she couldn't ignore. Jonathan continued, choosing his words carefully. "I don't have a magic solution. I can't promise life will be perfect. But I can promise to be present, to listen, to help wherever I'm able." Samantha studied him for what felt like an eternity. She could feel something shifting inside her, a cautious hope that had long been buried under grief. But doubt still lingered like a shadow. "And you really want to do this because of my daughter's request?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jonathan met her gaze steadily. "Not just because of her request. Because I think happiness is worth pursuing. For both of you. And seeing her courage to come here today, well, it reminds me of things I've forgotten." Samantha's eyes softened. She had spent so long carrying the weight of her life alone that she had nearly forgotten the power of trust. Nearly forgotten that someone else could care without expecting anything in return. Before she could respond, Maya leaned closer, whispering, "Mom, please, don't be sad. Please." Her words hit Samantha harder than anything anyone had ever said to her. She swallowed the lump in her throat and forced a smile, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "All right," she said softly. We can talk." Jonathan nodded, understanding that this was the first real breakthrough, words of agreement, not commitment, but the start of something fragile yet meaningful. They spent the next hour talking, not about marriage, not about wealth, but about life, struggles, and the simple desire to be happy. Jonathan shared carefully selected stories of challenges he had faced, moments of failure, and the rare times he had allowed himself to feel loneliness. Samantha shared her experiences raising Maya alone, the nights she cried in silence, and the fear of being unable to protect her child. Maya watched from her seat, eyes bright with cautious hope, occasionally interjecting with questions about Jonathan's life, about how he handled sadness, and how he could help their little family without expecting anything in return. Jonathan noticed her courage, her empathy, and the clarity with which she expressed her emotions. It reminded him that even the smallest voices could carry the heaviest truths. The conversation was interrupted by the soft buzz of Jonathan's phone. He glanced at it, frowning slightly. A message from his assistant flashed briefly. "Urgent, Derek Shaw called. Wants an immediate meeting." Jonathan's jaw tightened. Derek Shaw, his former business partner turned rival, was a storm waiting to strike. He quickly pocketed the phone, refusing to let it intrude on this delicate moment. Yet the shadow of the past had already crept into the room, unnoticed by Samantha and Maya. Jonathan leaned back, glancing at the mother-daughter pair. He realized that, in that room, a quiet tension had begun forming, a tension between what could be, and the unexpected obstacles lurking just around the corner. Samantha smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering with a mix of relief and uncertainty. I think this could work," she said softly. Jonathan nodded. "So do I. One step at a time." Maya grinned, squeezing her mother's hand. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes," she whispered. Jonathan returned the smile, but in the back of his mind, a single thought lingered. One step at a time, but what if the next step brings more trouble than any of us are ready for? The quiet office no longer felt empty. It was filled with possibility, but also with uncertainty. Something told Jonathan that the calm before the storm would not last. The first few days after that unexpected meeting felt surreal for Samantha. Jonathan's presence lingered in ways she hadn't anticipated. He wasn't just the towering, perfectly composed billionaire she had imagined from magazines. He was patient, attentive, and startlingly human. On the second morning, Jonathan showed up at their modest Evanston apartment with Maya in tow. The winter air was crisp, painting their breath into tiny clouds as Jonathan rang the doorbell. Samantha opened the door, startled to see him standing there again. "Good morning," he said warmly, holding a small paper bag. "I thought you might like breakfast, pancakes, eggs, and some coffee for you." Samantha blinked, unsure whether to be embarrassed or grateful. You didn't have to." Maya practically leapt at him. "I told you he'd come back," she exclaimed, tugging at her mother's sleeve. Jonathan chuckled, kneeling to her level. "I always try to keep my promises, little one." Samantha stepped aside, letting them in. The apartment suddenly seemed warmer, brighter somehow, though the furniture and paint were the same. His presence had a strange effect, a mix of authority and comfort. As Jonathan unpacked the breakfast onto the counter, he and Samantha made small talk. She found herself relaxing slightly, noting the ease with which he navigated this unfamiliar environment. "You know," Jonathan said, cracking 2 eggs into a pan, "I never realized how much effort it takes to manage everything alone. I mean, raising a child, working, everything." Samantha looked down at her hands. "It's not easy. Some days I wonder if I'm doing it right." "You're doing more than right," Jonathan said sincerely. "Most people couldn't do what you do day in and day out. It takes courage, and patience, and love." Samantha felt heat rush to her cheeks. No one had ever praised her like that, not even family, not even friends. The sincerity in his voice felt genuine. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that someone outside of her tiny world actually cared. Maya bounced on her heels. "See, Mommy? I told you he's nice." Jonathan smiled at the girl. "Your mom is strong too. You just have to remember that together, you both make a great team." Breakfast passed quietly with laughter and small chatter. Jonathan even attempted to flip pancakes, dropping one spectacularly onto the counter, earning a giggle from Maya and a surprised laugh from Samantha. It was a simple moment, but for Samantha, it felt monumental. After breakfast, Jonathan suggested a short walk to the nearby park. Samantha hesitated. It wasn't that she was fearful, she had spent enough years navigating life alone, but the idea of going out with him, a man she barely knew, felt surreal. Maya practically dragged her mother's hand as they walked, chattering about the squirrels and the frozen pond. Jonathan fell into step beside them, offering gentle commentary about the neighborhood. "You know, I grew up not too far from here," he said. "Chicago's always been home, but Evanston, it has a charm. Quieter, friendlier. The kind of place that reminds you there's more to life than work." Samantha nodded, silently agreeing. She had grown up in this neighborhood, gone to local schools, and worked at the hospital nearby. And yet, she rarely noticed the beauty in everyday life, until now. Maya tugged at Jonathan's sleeve. "Play catch with me." He smiled, dropping his briefcase and taking the ball. Soon, the three of them were running, laughing, and tossing the small ball back and forth on the frozen grass. For Samantha, it was the first time in years she felt lighthearted. The stress, the sadness, the exhaustion, all of it faded into the background for a few precious hours. Jonathan watched her from across the park, noticing the subtle lines of tension in her shoulders easing, the sparkle in her eyes that she hadn't realized she'd lost. He felt a protective instinct awaken inside him, an impulse he hadn't experienced with anyone, not in decades. As the sun began to dip, casting golden hues across the ice and snow, the three of them sat on a bench, catching their breath. Maya leaned against her mother, sleepy but happy. Jonathan broke the silence. "Samantha, may I be honest?" Samantha looked at him cautiously. "Of course. I don't know how this is going to work," he said carefully. "I don't know the right words to say or the right steps to take. But I want to help. I want to be someone you can rely on. Not as a replacement for anyone, not as some grand solution. Just someone you can trust." Samantha's chest tightened. She hadn't expected him to put it into words so plainly. Her life had been a constant juggling act, and trust wasn't something she gave easily. But something about his sincerity made her hesitate before turning away. I appreciate that," she whispered. "I don't know if I'm ready, but maybe for Maya's sake, we can try." Jonathan nodded, not pressing further. Trust was built slowly, and he had learned that over the years in business and life. Maya, sensing the tension, jumped up. "Can we come here tomorrow too?" Jonathan smiled. "Yes, we can." Samantha allowed herself a tiny smile in return. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. The day ended with Jonathan driving them back home. The car was quiet except for the soft hum of the engine. Maya slept in the back seat, exhausted from the day's excitement. Samantha glanced at Jonathan. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For caring. For giving us your time. For noticing her and noticing me." Jonathan's eyes softened. "I think sometimes we notice the things that matter most when someone else reminds us to look." They arrived at the apartment, and Jonathan helped Maya out of her car seat. Samantha hugged her daughter tightly, whispering soft reassurances, and for a fleeting moment she felt whole again. Jonathan lingered at the door. "I should go," he said. "But I'll see you both again soon." Samantha nodded, not trusting herself to speak further. As he drove away, Samantha felt something shift inside her. A fragile hope, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. But in the quiet of the apartment, a creeping worry lingered, one she couldn't shake. What if letting someone else in only leads to more heartache? Unseen by Samantha, Jonathan's car disappeared down the street, but inside he clenched his jaw. Something had stirred in him that day, a protective, almost obsessive feeling that he didn't fully understand. Something that warned him that the peace he felt now might be only temporary. Because life, as he had learned over decades of power, never stayed calm for long. And the next challenge, something neither Samantha nor Jonathan could foresee, was already on its way. The following morning felt different, not just for Maya but for everyone who had witnessed the strange, heartbreaking, almost surreal encounter between the grieving girl and the billionaire who had stepped into her life like an unexpected storm. The sky was still gray, carrying traces of last night's rain, and the crisp morning air smelled like wet dust and new beginnings. Maya barely slept. She woke up several times clutching the blanket Mr. Adrian had placed over her the night before while she lay exhausted on the mansion's guest room couch. Now she sat at the edge of the bed, her hands trembling slightly as she stared at the reflection in the mirror. A girl with tired eyes. A girl trying to appear stronger than she felt. A girl about to sign something that could change her entire life. She whispered to herself, "Just breathe, Maya, you can do this." Downstairs, the energy in the house was different. The staff whispered quietly among themselves as three sharply dressed lawyers, men and women in tailored suits, stepped into the living room, briefcases in hand. Everyone knew something big was happening. At the center of it all sat Mr. Adrian Beaumont, calm, unreadable, powerful. But his eyes softened when he looked up and saw Maya lingering nervously by the stairway. "Good morning, Maya," he said gently. "Come, don't be afraid." She swallowed hard and nodded, following him to the long mahogany table where documents were being arranged neatly. The head lawyer, Miss Harrington, adjusted her glasses and smiled politely at Maya. "Mr. Beaumont has briefed us about your situation. Today we're here to finalize an offer that ensures your safety, your education, and the proper burial of your sister." Maya's heart clenched. Even hearing the word sister sent a wave of emotion through her. Ms. Harrington proceeded carefully, her voice professional but warm. "Mr. Beaumont has decided to take full responsibility for your sister's burial arrangements. You will not pay a single coin." Maya lowered her gaze, struggling to speak. "Thank you. But that is not all," the lawyer continued. "Given your circumstances, Mr. Beaumont is also offering you a long-term employment contract within his company. Not as a cleaner, not as a servant, but as a junior administrative trainee under direct supervision." Maya blinked, confused. "Administrative? But I didn't finish school." Mr. Adrian leaned forward. "That's why I'm including a full scholarship, private tutoring until you catch up, then sponsorship through any high school or university you want." The room went silent. Maya felt her chest burn with a mix of disbelief and fear. "Sir, I don't deserve all of this." "It's not about deserving," he said quietly. "It's about giving someone a chance no one ever gave. And I believe you'll make good use of it." She could barely hold back the tears. Miss Harrington cleared her throat softly. There is only one condition, Maya. And please know, it is for your protection, not ours. Maya hesitated. What condition? Mr. Adrian's eyes held a seriousness she hadn't seen before. You must stay away from your mother. Maya froze. It felt as if the air left the room. The lawyers exchanged glances. This, they knew, was the sensitive part. She has exploited you, he continued. She abandoned you. And she put you in situations no parent should ever put their child in. If you remain connected to her, legally or emotionally, your life will return to chaos. Maya's lip quivered. But she's still my mother? Yes, he said. And someday, if she chooses to change, if she truly wants to rebuild herself, you can revisit this. But right now, she is a danger to your safety and your future. Ms. Harrington slid the contract across the table. All this document says is that your mother will not have access to your employment, your earnings, your schooling, or any decisions concerning your welfare. It protects you from manipulation or forced control. Maya's hands trembled as she looked at the paper. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. You owe me. I gave birth to you. You belong to me. But then she remembered something stronger. Her sister's last promise? The whisper she made the night before she died. Maya, don't let anyone destroy your future. Not even Mom. Her chest tightened like it was wrapped in rope. She lifted her eyes. Can I have a moment alone? Everyone nodded. She stepped outside to the garden, where the morning sun was beginning to warm the damp grass. She sank onto a stone bench, pressing her palms against her face as silent tears escaped. I'm not betraying you, she whispered to the memory of her sister. I'm just trying to survive. She thought of all the nights she slept on the cold floor, listening to her mother's drunken yelling. She thought of the beatings, the hunger, the shame. And then she pictured something she never had before. A door opening instead of closing. A future instead of fear. When she finally stood up, her eyes were still red, but her soul felt steady. Braver. Clear. She re-entered the house. Everyone rose as she walked back to the table, including Mr. Adrian. Maya sat down, took a shaky breath, and picked up the pen. I'm ready, she whispered. The moment the tip of the pen touched the paper, her hand shook violently. She forced herself to continue, line by line, signature by signature, each stroke feeling like she was carving a new path into her destiny. When she placed the pen down, the lawyers nodded respectfully. Congratulations, Maya, Miss Harrington said softly. Your life changes today. Just as the lawyers began packing their files, the doorbell rang. One of the staff members hurried to answer it. Seconds later, the housekeeper rushed in, whispering something urgently into Mr. Adrian's ear. The billionaire's expression darkened instantly. What is it? Maya asked nervously. Mr. Adrian exhaled slowly. Your mother is outside. Maya's blood ran cold. Before she could speak, a loud, furious voice started screaming at the gate. Let me in. Where is my daughter? Maya, you think you can leave me? Her mother's slurred, angry voice carried through the air like a nightmare returning to life. Maya felt her heart crack. The billionaire stood up immediately, his voice firm and protective. Maya, stay behind me. Do not go outside. But, no, this is where your new life begins. And she cannot drag you back into the old one. The shouting grew louder. Security rushed toward the entrance. Maya's world froze. Chapter 7 ends with her mother outside. And the contract still fresh, the ink barely dry. The sound of her mother's shouting rattled the air like thunder beating against glass. Maya stood frozen in the middle of the living room, her breath caught in her throat and her heart pounding so violently she felt dizzy. This wasn't how she imagined her new beginning. Not today. Not now. Mr. Adrian stepped in front of her like a shield, his shoulders squared, his jaw set. His entire presence changed. No longer the gentle, soft-spoken billionaire she had grown used to. This was the powerful man the world feared, the man whose name made CEOs tremble. Stay behind me, he said again. But Maya couldn't move. Her legs felt rooted to the ground. Her mother's voice, angry, slurred, wild, echoed from outside. You think you can run from me? Open this gate right now. Maya. I said come out here. Each word felt like a whip. The lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. The staff members whispered nervously. Even the guards looked tense. Maya slowly shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. I didn't think she'd come here, she whispered. Mr. Adrian softened his tone. She wasn't invited and she has no right to be here. But I won't allow her to intimidate you anymore. The shouting grew louder, more aggressive. You think because you met a rich man you're better than me? You owe me. I'm your mother. Mr. Adrian's jaw tightened. He signaled to his head of security, Mr. Hale, a tall, stern man with a calm but commanding presence. Remove her from the gate and do not let her anywhere near this property, Adrian ordered. Mr. Hale nodded and marched toward the front entrance with 2 guards. Maya felt a surge of panic. No. Please, don't hurt her, she said quickly. Adrian looked at her with steady eyes. No one will hurt her, Maya. But she will not harm you either. Maya's hands shook as she gripped the edge of a chair for balance. Every fear she had tried to bury broke to the surface. Her mother's rage, the insults, the addiction, the nights she was dragged out of the house, the times she begged her to stop. She felt like a little girl again, small, afraid, powerless. Before the guards could reach the gate, something shocking happened. Maya's mother forced her way past the distracted security guard who had gone to open the smaller pedestrian gate. She shoved him aside with surprising strength and stormed onto the property. Where is my child? Maya. Her stare was wild, her clothes wrinkled, her hair messy, her steps unstable. Maya gasped. The guards rushed to block her, but she screamed louder, pointing at the mansion's front door. Don't touch me. She is my daughter. You can't keep her from me. Her voice cracked with fury and desperation. Maya felt her throat closing. Shame burned her skin. She didn't want Mr. Adrian to see this. She didn't want anyone to see this. Mr. Adrian didn't hesitate. He marched to the entrance as the woman pushed against the guards. Maya reluctantly followed, her chest tight with fear. When her mother saw them, she froze, then her eyes narrowed into slits. So it's true, she hissed. You're hiding here, living in luxury while I'm suffering. Maya stepped back instinctively. Her mother pointed a trembling finger at her. You think you can leave me behind like garbage? Maya whispered, Mama, please, you're making a scene? Her mother scoffed. A scene? This is what you call a scene. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me. Mr. Adrian stepped forward, his voice low but firm. Madam, you need to calm down and leave. This is private property. She turned sharply toward him. And who are you to tell me what to do with my child? I am the man protecting her from the harm you caused, Adrian replied coldly. Her mother's face twisted with anger. Protecting her? From me? You don't know anything. Her mother lunged toward Maya. The guards grabbed her arms immediately, restraining her, but she kept screaming. You think she's innocent? She stole from me. She disrespects me. She runs off whenever she wants. She deserves discipline. Maya's tears spilled over as she shook her head. That's not true. Mama, stop. Her mother continued, voice growing more unstable. I gave her everything, she screamed. And she left me. Like her useless sister. Maya flinched so hard her knees buckled. Adrian's eyes flashed with anger. This conversation is over. Her mother ignored him. You're going to school now? Getting rich? Getting a job? And what about me? Who's going to take care of me? You were supposed to take care of us, Maya whispered brokenly. Her mother froze. For a moment, just a moment, her face crumpled with something almost like guilt. But then it twisted back into rage. You ungrateful child. Without me, you're nothing. Maya's voice trembled but held a strength she had never used against her mother before. That's not true. I'm tired of living in fear, tired of crying, tired of pretending things are okay. I'm done, Mama. Her mother's eyes widened, stunned. Maya stepped back toward Adrian. This is where I start over. Her mother screamed, a raw, painful sound that split the air. No. No, 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 Maya, you can't do this. Don't you dare walk away from me. She broke past the guards for a split second and grabbed Maya's wrist. Maya, you come home with me right now. Maya gasped from the pressure. Her mother's grip was painful, desperate, almost bruising. Adrian moved instantly. Let her go. The composure in his voice was gone, replaced with cold steel. Maya's mother glared at him. You think you can buy her? You think money gives you rights over my child? No, Adrian said softly. But love does. Care does. Safety does. And you gave her none. He gently pried her hand off Maya, the guard stepping in again. Her mother screamed profanities, fighting like someone possessed. Maya, you're mine. You hear me? You're mine. Maya hid behind Adrian, sobbing. Her mother was dragged back toward the gate, kicking and shouting until her voice cracked. You'll regret this. Both of you. You'll see. The moment the gate closed, the entire compound fell silent. Maya collapsed to the ground, her breathing rapid, tears streaming. Her hands covered her face as quiet sobs shook her body. Mr. Adrian knelt beside her immediately. Maya? Maya, look at me. She couldn't. She felt exposed. Ashamed. Small. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. None of this was your fault, he whispered. None of it. She cried harder, shaking her head. She hates me, she really hates me. No, he said softly. She's lost. And hurt. And drowning in her own demons. But her pain is not your burden anymore. Maya's voice broke. Why couldn't she love me like a mother should? Adrian swallowed slowly, the question cutting deeper than she knew. Sometimes, he said gently, people are so broken they cannot give what they never learned to have. Maya leaned into him, exhausted. He hesitated only a second before placing a supportive arm around her. You're safe now, he whispered. You hear me? Safe. When she finally calmed down, Adrian stood and helped her to her feet. From today, he said firmly, security will monitor the area. Your mother will not come near you again. Maya wiped her tears. But, what if she needs help? Adrian looked at her, surprised by her kindness even after all the pain. If she truly wants help, we will provide it, he said. But she must want to change. Maya nodded weakly. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of a chain fall off her. The past had broken through the gate, but it failed to pull her back. She was still standing, still breathing, still choosing her future. And Adrian? He wasn't leaving. Not now. Not ever. The house felt unnaturally quiet after the chaos. Too quiet. Maya lay curled up on the sofa in the guest living room, wrapped in a soft blanket, but no warmth could reach her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her body still trembling from the shock of what happened. She kept replaying her mother's face, twisted in rage, then desperation, then something dark she couldn't even name. Every scream, every insult, every accusation reverberated inside her like a bruise that refused to fade. She wished she could erase it. But memories never leave easily. Footsteps approached, slow and gentle. Maya? Adrian's voice was soft, almost hesitant. She didn't look up. You don't have to stay here. I'm fine. You're not fine, he said, sitting on the armchair across from her. And I'm not leaving you alone tonight. She swallowed hard, her throat tight. A painful silence stretched between them. Finally, she whispered, I didn't want you to see that. I needed to, he replied simply, so I could understand you better. But you shouldn't have, she murmured, hugging the blanket tighter. No one should see that side of my life. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. Maya, all of us have parts of our past we wish we could hide. But pain doesn't disappear just because we bury it. Maya bit her lip, trying to hold back fresh tears. I hate that she came here, she said shakily. I hate that she embarrassed me. I hate that she made everything ugly. She didn't embarrass you, Adrian said firmly. She exposed her own demons, not yours. Maya looked at him then, really looked at him. And she saw something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. Something protective. Something fierce. Something that scared her a little because it felt safe. But she quickly looked away, wiping her cheeks. Adrian stood up slowly. "Come with me," he said. She hesitated. "Where?" "Just trust me." For some reason she couldn't explain, she rose and followed him. He led her down the hallway to the back terrace. The soft glow of garden lights illuminated the lush trees, and beyond them was the private lake behind the mansion, still, quiet, and peaceful under the soft shimmer of the moon. The night air was cool and crisp, brushing against her skin. She inhaled deeply, letting the freshness cut through the emotional fog. "Sit," he said gently, gesturing toward the cushioned outdoor bench that overlooked the water. She obeyed, sinking into the seat. Adrian sat beside her, not too close, but not distant either. "I come here whenever life feels too heavy," he said. "Helps me breathe again." Maya gazed at the lake, watching the moonlight ripple across its surface. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Like a reset button," he said quietly. "A reminder that chaos can't touch everything." Another long silence followed, but this one felt different, calmer, less painful. Maya finally spoke, voice trembling but steady. "You probably think she's a monster." "No," Adrian said immediately. "I think she's broken. Deeply broken. And hurting people is the only way she knows how to communicate." Maya swallowed. "She wasn't always like that," she whispered, staring at her hands. "When I was younger, she used to braid my hair every morning before school. She used to cook pancakes on weekends. She used to laugh." Adrian listened quietly. "Then she met my stepfather," Maya continued, her voice faltering. "It all changed. The drinking. The yelling. The hitting." The last word came out barely audible. Adrian's hands tightened on his knees, anger flickering through his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "You didn't deserve any of that." "No child does," she murmured. She felt herself crumbling inside again. But this time, instead of breaking alone, she let the truth spill out. "You know what hurts the most?" she whispered. "It's not the pain she caused. It's that part of me still wants her to love me. Even after everything." Adrian exhaled deeply, like her words cut through him. "That doesn't make you weak," he said. "It makes you human." She shook her head. "I feel stupid. Pathetic. Why do I even care?" "Because she's your mother," he said gently. "No matter how damaged she is, some part of you will always want what she couldn't give." Maya's eyes filled again. "I wish I could stop caring." He turned to look at her directly. "Caring is not the problem," he said. "It's carrying all of her mistakes like they're your burden. That's what's destroying you." Her breath hitched. His words felt like they were peeling open every wound she tried so hard to hide. And then, for the first time since the confrontation, Maya truly broke. Silent tears streamed down her face, followed by small, painful sobs she couldn't hold back. Adrian hesitated only a moment before reaching out, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. The contact was warm, comforting, unexpected. But she didn't pull away. She leaned into it. Because for once, just once, someone wasn't asking her to be strong. After a while, the sobs faded. Her breathing steadied. The world around them felt quieter, like the night itself understood the need for peace. Adrian spoke softly. "You're not alone anymore, Maya." She shook her head. "You don't have to say that." "I'm not saying it out of pity," he replied. "I'm saying it because it's true." She didn't know why, but that made her chest tighten. "You're too kind," she whispered. "You shouldn't be involved in my problems." "You're not a problem," he said firmly. "You're a person who deserves care, support, a chance at life without fear." Her throat tightened again. "Why are you doing so much for me?" she asked quietly. "Why do you care?" Adrian looked away, eyes resting on the shimmering lake. "Because I see myself in you," he said softly. "More than you know." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. Maya leaned slightly forward. "Adrian, you can tell me." He let out a slow breath. "Because someone I once loved, someone I failed to protect, came from a home like yours." Maya's heart froze. She had never heard him speak like this. So vulnerable. So human. "What happened?" she asked gently. Adrian shook his head. Not tonight. Tonight is about you. But the look in his eyes told her everything. He carried wounds too, and some of them were still bleeding. They sat in silence again, but now the air felt warmer, more intimate. Maya leaned her head back against the bench, exhausted but calmer. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being here." Adrian nodded. "I'm here as long as you need me to be." A quiet moment passed. Then he added, almost in a whisper, "And even longer than that." Something fluttered in her chest at the sound of those words. Something she didn't understand. Something she wasn't sure she should feel. But she felt it anyway. Suddenly a phone buzzed. Maya jumped slightly, startled. Adrian pulled his phone from his pocket and glanced at the screen. His expression darkened, just for a moment, before he quickly masked it. Maya noticed. "Is everything okay?" she asked. He slid the phone back silently. "Yes," he said. "Nothing to worry about." But Maya's gut twisted. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried a shadow. Before she could ask again, his phone buzzed a second time, then a third. This time he didn't check it. He just stared at the lake. "Maya," he said slowly, voice suddenly distant. "There's something I need to tell you tomorrow. Something important." Her heart dipped. Is it about me?" "No," he said. "It's about my past." She felt a chill despite the warm night air. He looked at her with a seriousness she had never seen before. "But tonight," he continued, "just rest. You deserve peace." Maya nodded, though unease crawled through her stomach. As they walked back toward the mansion, she glanced at him again. His jaw was tight, his eyes troubled, his thoughts miles away. And for the first time, Maya wondered whether she was the only one with ghosts breaking through the gate. Because something in Adrian's past was coming back. And whatever it wasn't small. It wasn't harmless. And it wasn't going away. The next morning arrived slowly, almost reluctantly, as if even the sun feared waking the mansion after the previous day's storm. Maya hadn't slept much. She tossed and turned all night, her thoughts spiraling between her mother's meltdown at the gate and Adrian's troubled expression on the terrace. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face, twisted, desperate, broken. And beside it, Adrian's eyes, darkened, haunted, holding a secret he wasn't ready to speak. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the soft morning light slipping through the curtains. Today. He said he'd tell her today. A knot twisted inside her chest. What could possibly scare a man like Adrian? When she finally went downstairs, one of the housekeepers, Mrs. Collins, a warm older woman with silver hair pulled into a neat bun, offered her a reassuring smile. "Good morning, sweetheart. There's breakfast waiting in the sunroom." Maya smiled weakly. "Thank you." She walked to the sunroom, her steps slow and uncertain. The air smelled like cinnamon and maple syrup, pancakes maybe, a scent that made her chest tighten with old childhood memories she didn't ask for. Adrian stood by the window, staring out at the front lawn. His back was straight, hands in his pockets, body still as stone. He turned as soon as she entered. "Maya." "Good morning," she said softly. He gave a faint smile, but she could see it clearly now. He had barely slept too. "Sit. Eat something," he said. She sat. He didn't. He just watched her with that unreadable expression. Maya cut a small piece of pancake, but her hand trembled with anxiety. After a few seconds, she whispered, "You said you'd tell me something today." Adrian nodded slowly. "I will. After breakfast." Her stomach tightened. "I'm not really hungry," she murmured. "That's why you should try," he said gently. "You need strength." Something in his tone made her nervous, but she forced herself to take another bite. They ate, or at least pretended to, until Adrian finally exhaled sharply. "Come with me." He led her to his private office, the one room she had never entered. Dark walnut shelves lined the walls, filled with books, awards, framed contracts, and a few pictures. She noticed at once. There were no family photos. Not one. Adrian closed the door gently behind them. The silence felt heavier than the walls. He walked to his desk, pulled open a drawer, and took out an old leather file. Its edges were worn as if someone had opened it too many times, or wanted to burn it but couldn't. He placed it on the table between them. "Maya," he said quietly, "there's something you need to understand about me before this goes any further." Her breath hitched. Further? What did he mean, further? He seemed to catch her confusion and shook his head slightly. "Not romantically," he said softly. "That's not what I mean. You're too young, and that's not what this is about." Relief washed through her, but so did curiosity. "I mean emotionally," he clarified. "As someone I'm protecting. Someone I'm responsible for. Someone whose life might intersect with mine more than I expected." Maya nodded slowly. "I'm listening." Adrian rested a hand on the file. "My past didn't create the man people think I am," he said. "It created the man I've been trying not to become." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He opened the file. Maya leaned in. The first thing she saw was a faded picture of two teenagers. One clearly a younger Adrian, maybe 16 or 17. His arm was around a girl with dark curly hair and a bright smile. They looked happy. Effortlessly happy. "Who is she?" Maya asked softly. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Her name was Camila." Maya blinked. Why was... Adrian took a slow breath as if forcing himself to continue. "She wasn't my girlfriend," he said. "She was my best friend. My only friend." Maya felt her heart soften. "And we had something in common," Adrian continued quietly. "Her home life was like yours." Maya's breath caught. She had an alcoholic mother. An abusive stepfather. She'd come to my house some nights just to sleep on the floor because it was quiet. Maya swallowed hard. "I didn't know how to help her," Adrian said. "I didn't understand trauma back then. I didn't know what addiction could do to a household. I was just a kid trying to protect another kid." "What happened?" Maya whispered. He looked away, and she realized he was afraid to say it out loud. "She died," he said finally. Maya jerked back slightly, eyes widening. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Adrian continued, voice steady but distant. "One night she called me. She said she couldn't take it anymore. She begged me to come get her." Maya felt a cold wave rush through her. Adrian's fingers pressed against the table so tightly his knuckles whitened. "I told her to wait. I was arguing with my father at the time. He and I didn't get along. He wouldn't let me leave. He kept saying it wasn't my job to save her." Maya's throat tightened painfully. "So I waited," Adrian whispered. 10 minutes. 15. 20. And I was too late." He closed the file. She collapsed outside her own house. The police said her stepfather had snapped. She didn't survive. Maya covered her mouth with her hand, tears filling her eyes. "She was 16, he added quietly. A long silence followed. The kind that settles into the bones. "You blamed yourself," Maya said softly. Adrian nodded once. "For years," he whispered. "Sometimes even now." He looked at her with an expression she had never seen from him before, raw, fragile, honest. "When I saw your mother yesterday, when I saw the fear in your eyes," he paused, voice trembling almost imperceptibly, "it felt like watching my past repeat itself. Like losing Camila all over again." Maya's tears spilled. "And I realized," he said slowly, "I will not fail again. Not with you." Her breath caught. Something inside her shifted, something she wasn't ready to name. "Adrian," she whispered, "you didn't fail her. You were just a kid." "Sometimes," he murmured, "being young doesn't absolve guilt." She shook her head firmly, wiping her cheeks. "She wouldn't want you to carry that forever. I don't want you to carry it either." His eyes softened. Their pain, his and hers, felt like two broken mirrors reflecting each other. He exhaled deeply as if releasing something heavy. "My fear," he said slowly, "is that your mother will escalate even further. And I will not allow history to repeat itself." Maya nodded, emotional but determined. "I'm not going back," she whispered. "Not this time. Not ever." Adrian nodded. But before he could say more, a sudden knock at the office door startled them both. Adrian stiffened. "Come in," he called. Mr. Hale, the head of security, stepped inside, face tense, eyes sharp. "Sir," he said urgently, "you need to see this." Adrian stood immediately. "What happened?" Mr. Hale hesitated, glancing briefly at Maya. "It's about her mother," he said. "There's been an incident." Maya's heart dropped. Her blood went cold. "What kind of incident?" Adrian demanded. Mr. Hale swallowed. "Sir, it appears she's been taken into custody." Maya gasped. "For what?" He glanced at her carefully, voice low and serious. "For something far more dangerous than yesterday's scene at the gate." Maya felt the room tilt. Her knees weakened. Dangerous? Custody? What had her mother done now? Adrian's expression darkened again. That same haunted look from last night. "Maya," he said quietly, "it seems the past isn't finished with us yet." Her heart raced. Faster. Harder. 'Cause whatever happened, it was only the beginning. By the time Saturday evening arrived, Madison had cleaned the house 3 separate times. Not because it was messy, but because her nerves wouldn't let her sit still. She kept straightening picture frames, wiping the same counters, dusting shelves that hadn't seen dust in years. Her heart felt like it was running a marathon inside her chest. Evelyn noticed the tension. "Mom," she whispered, leaning against the doorway, "you don't have to be nervous." But Madison could only smile weakly. "Sweetheart, I haven't had a proper dinner with a man, other than your father, since before you were born. I don't even know how to do this anymore." Evelyn walked toward her mother and hugged her tightly. "You don't have to do anything. Just be yourself. Mr. King likes you. I can feel it." Madison laughed softly. "I don't know about that." "Oh, trust me," Evelyn said confidently. "He does." While they were still hugging, a knock sounded on the door. Madison froze. Evelyn didn't. She practically sprinted to the door, smoothed down her braids, and opened it with the biggest grin she'd worn in years. Mr. King. There he was, Benjamin, wearing a neatly pressed button-down and holding 2 grocery bags full of ingredients. The smell of fresh herbs drifted from the bags, and he gave a small, slightly nervous smile. "Evening, Evelyn. I hope I'm not too early." "No, you're perfect," Evelyn said, stepping aside. Madison appeared behind her daughter, pushing a stray curl behind her ear. "Benjamin, welcome." His smile softened, warmer than usual. "Thank you for having me." Evelyn closed the door and whispered under her breath, "This is going to be good." Evelyn hovered in the kitchen doorway as Madison and Benjamin unpacked groceries. He had brought fresh salmon, asparagus, potatoes, garlic, and a bundle of rosemary. "You cook?" Madison asked, raising an eyebrow. Benjamin chuckled. "Well, I don't usually have time. But when I do cook, I like to do it right." Madison shook her head in disbelief. "A billionaire who cooks? That's new." He flashed a playful grin. "Careful, Miss Hayes. I do have layers." Evelyn slapped her hands over her face. "Oh my gosh, can you two flirt less and cook more?" "I'm hungry." Madison gasped as if caught, and Benjamin laughed. "All right, Chef King," Madison said teasingly. "What should I do?" "Just relax," he replied. "I've got this." But Madison didn't relax. She helped chop vegetables, wash dishes as he used them, set the table twice because she kept rearranging it, and every few minutes she would sneak shy glances at him. Benjamin pretended not to notice, but he did. And every one of those glances warmed him more than he expected. Dinner looked like something from a restaurant. Perfectly seared salmon, roasted potatoes, and bright green asparagus. Evelyn practically inhaled her food the second it touched her plate. "This is amazing," she mumbled around a mouthful of salmon. "I'm glad you like it," Benjamin said. Madison ate more slowly, savoring each bite. "This is incredible, Benjamin. Thank you for doing all this." He looked at her, really looked at her, his voice soft. It was worth it. Something flickered between them, something neither of them had expected to feel again in their lives. After a moment, Evelyn cleared her throat loudly. "So, Mom used to be a singer." Madison nearly choked. "Evelyn." Benjamin's eyebrows lifted. "A singer?" "A very good one," Evelyn said proudly. "But she stopped after everything happened with my dad." Madison's eyes dropped. That was a lifetime ago. Benjamin leaned forward slightly. I'd love to hear you sing sometime. Madison laughed, embarrassed. No, trust me, you wouldn't. I'm rusty. I doubt that, he said warmly. Evelyn was grinning so hard she could barely eat. After dinner, Evelyn excused herself to finish homework, though they all knew she just wanted to give her mother some space. Benjamin and Madison stood in the kitchen, cleaning up together. At one point, their hands brushed while reaching for the same plate, and Madison pulled back quickly. Sorry, she whispered. Benjamin shook his head. Don't be. Madison looked away, her cheeks glowing. It had been so long since anyone showed interest in her. So long since she felt seen. And the last thing she wanted was to get hurt again. But what she didn't know was that Benjamin felt the same fear, of caring too much, too fast. As they cleaned, Madison asked gently, Benjamin, earlier this week you mentioned that you lost someone. Someone you didn't talk about much. Was it someone close? He froze. Just for a split second, but Madison noticed. He swallowed, placed the last dish on the rack and leaned against the counter. I haven't talked about this in years, he murmured. But I suppose you deserve to know. Madison waited silently. Benjamin took a breath. I was engaged. Her name was Camille. Madison's heart sank. She hadn't expected that. She passed away in a car accident 3 years ago, he continued. And after that, everything changed. I threw myself into work. I became colder, detached. I didn't want to feel anything because feeling meant remembering. Madison's eyes softened with empathy. Benjamin, I'm so sorry. He nodded. You don't have to be. I'm telling you because, tonight I realized I laughed more than I have in years. And that scares me. Madison stepped closer. You're allowed to heal. Benjamin's eyes met hers. And you're helping me do that. Her breath caught. She didn't know what to say. But she didn't have to. Because, in that moment, Evelyn suddenly yelled from the hallway. Amo, Mr. King, you need to come see this. The alarm in her voice jolted both adults. They rushed toward her room. Evelyn was sitting at her desk, staring at her laptop screen, pale as a sheet. What's wrong? Madison asked. Evelyn swallowed hard and pointed at the screen. It's Dad, she whispered. He posted something online. Madison's stomach twisted. What did he post? Evelyn clicked play. A video started. Her father stood on a street corner holding a sign. His clothes were dirty, his hair unkempt. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. The sign read, I need money to get my family back. Please help me. Evelyn gasped. He's telling people that we abandoned him. That we left him homeless. Madison's hands trembled. Oh my God. Benjamin stepped behind them, eyes narrowing. That video is going viral, Evelyn whispered. Mom, millions of people are seeing it. Madison felt the world tilt. He can't do this. He can't twist the truth like this. Evelyn's voice shook. He said he wants custody of me. Madison's heart stopped. Benjamin straightened, his expression turning sharp, intense, protective. That's not going to happen, he said firmly. Madison stared at him, shaken. Benjamin, what do we do? He took a step closer, his voice steady and calm despite the storm around them. We fight back, he said. And I promise you, you're not fighting alone. Madison felt her knees weaken, not from fear but from relief. But before she could respond, Evelyn whispered, Mom, look. The video's comment section was scrolling non-stop. Hundreds of strangers calling Madison a monster. Calling Evelyn ungrateful. Calling their family broken. Benjamin clenched his jaw so tight it trembled. This, he said quietly, changes everything. Madison looked between her daughter, the screen, and Benjamin, fear rising inside her like a tidal wave. Benjamin, she whispered shakily, what do you mean? He turned toward her, eyes dark, not with anger at her, but with fury at the man who had just put their entire lives in danger. I mean, he said slowly, that your ex-husband just declared a war he cannot win. And starting tonight, I'm stepping in. Madison's breath hitched. Evelyn's eyes widened. And outside the window, A car they didn't recognize rolled slowly down the street, then stopped directly in front of their house. Madison's blood froze. "Mom?" Evelyn whispered. "Who is that?" Benjamin stepped closer to the window. His jaw dropped. "That's not possible," he muttered. But it was. And what he saw would raise even more questions than answers. The three of them stood frozen, staring out the living room window at the unfamiliar sedan parked directly in front of the house. Its headlights were off, but the engine was still running, humming quietly in the night. "Benjamin, who is that?" Madison whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm not sure," he replied, leaning slightly closer to the window. "But the license plate, it isn't local." Evelyn stepped closer to her mom, gripping her hand tightly. The passenger door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, clean-cut, wearing a charcoal gray suit despite the late hour. He stood under the street lamp, briefly glancing at the house as though confirming he had the right place. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't stumbling. He wasn't angry or wild like Madison's ex-husband often was. No, this man looked official, calculated, confident, like someone who didn't show up without a purpose. Madison swallowed hard. "Benjamin, do you know him?" Benjamin's eyes narrowed. "I think I've seen him before. Possibly downtown. Maybe near the King Tower offices." Before anyone could react, the man walked up the driveway and knocked firmly on the door. Knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp hits. Not frantic. Not aggressive. Just sure. Madison's pulse pounded in her ears. "Do we answer?" she whispered. Benjamin's voice was calm but firm. "I'll answer. Stay behind me." He unlocked the door and opened it halfway. The man offered a polite smile. "Good evening. I'm looking for Madison Hayes." Benjamin didn't move. "Who's asking?" The man reached into his jacket and produced a card. "My name is Daniel Pierce. I'm a private investigator." Madison's stomach dropped. "Apply? For who?" Benjamin's expression shifted instantly from caution to steel. "State your purpose." Daniel glanced past Benjamin's shoulder and spotted Madison. "Miss Hayes," he said gently, "I'm here to talk to you about your ex-husband, Christopher." Madison felt like the air left her lungs. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. Not again." Evelyn tightened her grip on her mother's hand. Madison stepped forward shakily. Why are you investigating him?" Daniel looked at her with an expression that was strangely sympathetic. "Because your ex-husband filed a claim that involves both you and your daughter. I'm here to verify some details." Madison blinked rapidly, panic rising. "What claim?" Daniel hesitated. "He filed for custody." Madison nearly collapsed, and Benjamin quickly placed a supportive hand on her back. "No," she whispered. He can't take her." Evelyn's voice cracked. "He abandoned us. He doesn't even know what school I go to." Daniel raised a calming hand. "I'm not here to take anyone. I'm simply gathering information. But I will tell you this." His voice lowered. "The video he posted, it's already causing complications." Benjamin stepped in front of Madison slightly, his protective stance unmistakable. "Complications in what way?" Daniel sighed. "Public opinion plays a large role in court decisions these days. He's painting himself as a desperate father who was kicked out and left with nothing. Judges don't ignore cases that attract media attention. And his video has hit 2 million views in under 8 hours. 8 hours. Madison felt the room spin. Benjamin clenched his jaw. "This is character manipulation. Fabrication. You must see that." Daniel nodded. "I do. But my job is to gather facts, not emotions." He paused, then added, "If it helps, Mr. King, I also know who you are. And I know your reputation. That's actually part of why I'm here." Benjamin's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Daniel placed his hands behind his back. "Your involvement with Ms. Hayes is going to draw attention. Her ex-husband is already claiming she's using your wealth to keep their daughter away from him." That sentence hit Madison like a punch to the stomach. "No," she whispered. "Benjamin has nothing to do with this. He's just helping us." Daniel gave a sympathetic nod. I know. But online? Facts don't matter. Perception does. Benjamin's expression hardened. I'll deal with perception. Madison shook her head, panicked. No, Benjamin. He's dragging you into this now. This is too much. Benjamin turned to her, his voice gentle but unwavering. Madison, I'm not going anywhere. Daniel cleared his throat. There's more. Evelyn felt her stomach twist. More? How? Daniel took a breath. Christopher isn't acting alone. The silence was instant and sharp. Benjamin frowned. Meaning? Someone is advising him. Someone who knows the legal system. Someone who understands how to twist public narratives. Madison stared at him, terrified. Who would help him? He has no friends, no family, no one left. Daniel hesitated. And then he said the name. He's being coached by an attorney named Victor Hale. Benjamin stiffened. Madison's mouth fell open. Evelyn looked confused. Who is that? Benjamin exhaled slowly, shaking his head as if trying to process it. Victor Hale is a corporate attorney who's been trying to take control of one of my companies for years. He's ruthless, manipulative, dangerous. Madison's eyes widened. So this is connected to you? Daniel nodded grimly. It appears so. Benjamin ran a hand through his hair, his voice low with growing fury. Christopher has no money, no power, no strategy. But Victor Hale, he's a different story. He doesn't care about morality. He only cares about winning. And if helping Christopher hurts me, that's a bonus to him. Madison's knees weakened again. So now, Benjamin said, turning to her with fierce determination, this isn't just about Evelyn. It's about a man who wants to use your family to get to me. Daniel raised a hand. Which means things are about to escalate. Daniel stepped forward, lowering his voice. Miss Hayes, I don't think you understand the danger you're in. Christopher's video is just the beginning. Victor Hale knows how to escalate drama. Expect interviews, manipulated evidence, fake witnesses. He's done it before. Madison's hands shook. How do we stop it? Daniel looked at Benjamin. You need the best legal team in the state. And you need to get ahead of this story fast. Benjamin nodded once. Say no more. Madison felt torn. Benjamin, I can't let you do this. You're risking your reputation, your companies, everything. For us. He met her eyes, voice calm but firm. There are some battles that are worth fighting. And protecting you and Evelyn is one of them. Her throat tightened. Evelyn looked up at him with unmistakable trust. Mr. King, are we going to be okay? Benjamin crouched slightly to meet her eye level. Yes, he said softly. We are. I promise you. Daniel checked his watch. I should head out. But one more thing, be careful. Someone has been watching the house. Madison's breath hitched. Watching us? Who? Daniel shook his head. I don't know yet. But that's why I came in person instead of calling. He stepped back. Lock your doors. Stay vigilant. Things may get noisy online, but don't let it rattle you. Truth wins when the right people fight for it. He gave a respectful nod and walked back to his car. They watched him drive away. The house was silent. Too silent. Madison collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I can't believe this. I can't believe he's doing this to us. Benjamin sat beside her, gently rubbing her back. You're not alone. Not anymore. Evelyn climbed into her mother's arms, holding her tightly. Mom, he's not going to win. We're stronger than him. We have people now. Madison cried quietly, overwhelmed. Benjamin watched them, a fire burning behind his eyes. No one hurt this family, not while he was here. As they sat in silence, Benjamin's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and froze. Madison noticed instantly. Benjamin? What is it? He swallowed hard. It's from my head of security. Madison's heart skipped. Is everything okay? Benjamin's voice dropped, tight and controlled. They just reviewed surveillance footage near my office. He turned the phone toward Madison and Evelyn. A photo appeared. Christopher. Standing outside King Tower. Talking to someone in a suit. Someone whose face was caught clearly by the camera. Madison gasped. That's That's Victor Hale. Benjamin nodded grimly. They met in person. This is bigger than we thought. Madison pressed a hand to her chest. Evelyn's eyes widened in fear. Then Benjamin stood up suddenly, his jaw set. I need to make a call. We start protecting this family tonight. Madison looked terrified. Benjamin, what are you going to do? He met her eyes, intense, unwavering, and deadly serious. I'm bringing in a crisis team. Madison's breath hitched. Evelyn stared at Benjamin, her voice small. What does that mean? Benjamin paused. It means your lives are about to change. Before Madison could question him, someone knocked lightly on the front door. 3 soft taps. Not Daniel. Not a neighbor. Benjamin stiffened immediately. Stay behind me. He moved toward the door slowly, every muscle tense. Madison clutched Evelyn tightly. Benjamin opened the door and froze. You. Madison's heart stopped. Evelyn gasped. The person standing there was the last person any of them expected. Benjamin stood in the doorway, shock freezing him in place. Madison felt her pulse trip and stumble. Evelyn clutched her mother's arm, eyes wide. Because standing there, illuminated by the porch light, was a woman none of them expected to see again. Not tonight, not ever. Camille's sister, Sabrina Ford. Tall, sharp-featured, wearing a sleek navy blazer and holding a thin envelope. Her hair fell neatly to her shoulders, and her expression was unreadable. But her presence alone was enough to send Benjamin spiraling into memories he thought were buried. Madison stepped beside him slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Benjamin, who is she? Benjamin swallowed hard. Sabrina. Sabrina gave a faint lift of her brow. Ben. It was the nickname she'd used years ago, before the accident, before grief tore their lives apart. Madison felt a sting of insecurity in her chest, but she pushed it down. Now wasn't the time. Benjamin finally found his voice. What are you doing here? Sabrina gave a small, tight smile. We need to talk. And it couldn't wait. Benjamin stiffened. How did you even find this address? She shrugged gently. My firm has access to a lot of information. Madison's stomach twisted at the word firm. Benjamin narrowed his eyes. Are you working with Victor Hale? Sabrina's expression sharpened. Absolutely not. I wouldn't touch that man's cases with a 10-foot pole. Benjamin relaxed. Barely. Sabrina's eyes flickered to Madison and Evelyn. May I come in? Benjamin hesitated, then nodded slowly. Just for a minute. Sabrina stepped inside, her shoes clicking softly on the hardwood. She scanned the small home, soaking in the warmth and simplicity. The way Madison's framed photos hung crookedly from earlier rush cleaning. The candle burning on the coffee table. The faint smell of roasted garlic still lingering from dinner. Madison stood protectively beside Evelyn. She straightened her posture, reminding herself that this woman was a stranger, regardless of her connection to Benjamin. Sabrina approached gently. You must be Madison. Madison nodded cautiously. And you are? Camille's sister. Madison's stomach tightened. Oh, I'm very sorry for your loss. Sabrina nodded politely, her expression softening just a fraction. Thank you. Evelyn peeked from behind her mother. Sabrina offered her a kind smile. I won't take much of your time, Sabrina said, turning back to Benjamin. This is about Christopher Hayes. Madison froze. You know about him? Sabrina lifted the envelope she'd brought. He sent a legal notice to my firm by mistake, thinking we were associated with the Hale Group. When we opened it, your name came up. She looked at Madison sympathetically. I recognized the last name from the video circulating online. Benjamin's eyes darkened. You saw that. Unfortunately, she said. And I immediately suspected something bigger was happening. Madison clutched her stomach. It felt wrong, exposed, to know strangers were watching that nightmare unfold. Sabrina stepped closer to Benjamin, her voice low. Ben, Victor Hale is targeting you. This custody stunt is just one of his attacks. Madison gasped softly. Sabrina continued. He's planning to file motions next week claiming that you're interfering with a custody case. He wants to drag your name into this publicly. He wants the media to turn this into a headline: Billionaire influences child custody battle. Benjamin's jaw clenched. Of course he does. Sabrina held his gaze. He wants you on the defensive. That's where you lose. Madison felt a cold shiver climb her spine. Why is he doing this to us? Why now? Sabrina opened the envelope and handed Benjamin a printed email chain. Benjamin skimmed it, and his eyes widened. Madison watched the blood drain from his face. "Benjamin," she whispered. "What is it?" Benjamin lowered the papers slowly. Hale contacted the Hayes case before Christopher even posted the video. Madison felt like the floor tilted beneath her. What? How? Why? Sabrina nodded gravely. He's orchestrating all of this. He wants to trigger you, overwhelm you, distract you. He knows your history. He knows you've been vulnerable since Camille's death. Benjamin said nothing, but Madison felt the pain radiate from him. Sabrina placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I came to warn you because I don't want to see you hurt again. You're like family, Ben. You were Camille's world." She hesitated, her voice softer. "And she would never forgive me if I let you walk into a trap." Madison looked down, her chest tightening. She understood, painfully, what Sabrina meant. The bonds of grief ran deep. Benjamin nodded once. "Thank you for telling me." Sabrina sighed. "There's something else." Madison's heart skipped painfully. Sabrina turned toward her. "Ms. Hayes, your ex-husband has filed a second claim. This one is sealed, but we caught traces of the paperwork." Madison's voice shook. "What kind of claim?" Sabrina locked eyes with her. "He's claiming emotional negligence. That you are unfit to care for Evelyn because of past trauma." Madison's breath caught in her throat. No, that's not true. I've given her everything. Everything I could." Evelyn grabbed Madison's hand. "She's the best mom in the world." "He's lying." Tears burned Madison's eyes. She wiped them quickly, ashamed to cry in front of a stranger, even one who meant well. Benjamin stepped closer, placing a steady arm around her shoulders. "He has no case." "None." Sabrina nodded. "He doesn't, but Hale does. And Hale will twist anything to make it look real." Madison felt the room spinning. Why would Christopher agree to this? Why hurt us like this? Sabrina's voice lowered. "Because he's being promised something. Money, power, revenge, control, or all of the above." Madison felt like her heart cracked open. Sabrina stepped back and looked around the house again, this time with more softness than before. "You two have built something peaceful here," she said quietly. "I envy it." Madison blinked in surprise. Sabrina drew a shaky breath. "When Camille died, I blamed Benjamin. I won't pretend otherwise. I thought he'd failed her. I thought he'd chosen work over her. And for a long time, I couldn't forgive that." Benjamin looked away, jaw tight. Sabrina continued, her voice gentler now. "But tonight, seeing you with this family, seeing how you protect them," she shook her head. "Camille would never want to hurt that. And neither do I." Madison felt a pang of empathy for the woman. Loss had shaped them all. Sabrina turned toward the door. "I have to go. But you need to prepare. Hale is planning something big. And soon." Benjamin stepped forward. "Sabrina, thank you." She nodded. "Take care, Ben." Then she paused at the door and added softly, "And Madison, don't let him push you into a corner. You're stronger than you think." Madison swallowed hard. "Thank you." Sabrina gave a final nod and stepped outside. Benjamin closed the door behind her. The moment it clicked shut, Madison's legs nearly gave out. "This is too much," she whispered. "Too fast. I don't know how to fight this." Benjamin caught her before she could fall, his hands gripping her shoulders firmly. "Madison," he said, looking deep into her shaking eyes, "listen to me. You are not alone in this. Not anymore. Hale wants chaos. We're not giving it to him. We're going to take control, strategically." Evelyn stood beside them, voice trembling. "What do we do now?" Benjamin exhaled slowly. "We call in the crisis team. First thing tomorrow." Madison nodded weakly, not entirely understanding but trusting him nonetheless. Benjamin continued, "And tonight, Evelyn sleeps in your room." Madison's heart dropped. "Why?" Benjamin glanced toward the window, eyes sharp. "Because Daniel was right." Madison felt chills run down her spine. "Someone has been watching this house." The house fell silent again. But it wasn't the peaceful kind of silence. It was the heavy, suffocating silence that comes before a storm. And then, a faint noise outside. A soft crunch of gravel. Evelyn stiffened. "Mom, did you hear that?" Benjamin walked toward the window carefully. Madison's chest tightened. "Benjamin, what is it?" He pulled the curtain aside just an inch. His eyes widened. "Madison," he whispered, voice deadly serious, "get Evelyn away from the window." Madison pulled her daughter back instantly. "What do you see?" she choked out. Benjamin slowly lowered the curtain. "There's someone standing across the street." Madison's heart slammed against her ribs. "Who?" Benjamin's voice was quiet. "I don't know. But they're watching the house." Madison's breath came in shaky gasps. Evelyn hugged her tightly. Benjamin reached for his phone. Madison whispered, terrified, "Benjamin, what are you doing?" He looked at her with a calm but chilling certainty. "Calling my security team. They're coming now." Madison swallowed hard. Evelyn trembled. Benjamin pressed call. And as the phone rang, the porch light flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then went out, leaving them in darkness. For the first time in years, Elaine felt something that resembled peace. Not the fragile, short-lived peace that came from pretending everything was fine, but the real thing. The kind that warmed her chest when she woke up in the morning and made her believe she might actually deserve a second chance. Since Mark's threat, she had expected every day to bring some new disaster. But instead, the opposite had happened. Hayden had stepped into her life like a protective wall she never asked for but desperately needed. He sent a private security team to quietly monitor the perimeter of their home without drawing attention. He arranged for her to meet with a family lawyer to understand her rights. He even set aside his work, something he never did, for weekly dinners with her and Tessa. Still, Elaine carried her fear like a shadow. Trauma had a way of making peace feel like a borrowed gift, one that could be stolen back at any moment. Tonight was one of those evenings where everything felt almost perfect. Hayden had invited them to his estate again, this time for a quiet dinner rather than a full gathering. The sun dipped behind the California hills, casting a warm golden glow through the kitchen windows. The smell of baked rosemary chicken and garlic mashed potatoes filled the air. Tessa sat at the kitchen island, swinging her legs and watching Hayden chop vegetables with an intensity entirely unnecessary for carrots. "You're doing it wrong," she said with a straight face. Hayden paused mid-slice. "Am I?" "Yes." She leaned forward. "The carrots are supposed to look like little flowers. Mom makes them that way." Elaine laughed from the table where she was reviewing some paperwork. "Sweetheart, nobody needs to make flower carrots. That's just something I used to do to get you to eat them." "But it worked," Tessa replied. Hayden looked between them with mock seriousness. "I see. So my simple, humble carrot slices are not acceptable for the Princess of Los Angeles." "Yes," Tessa answered without hesitation. Elaine covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Hayden put down the knife dramatically. "Then please, Princess Tessa, show me the correct royal carrot flower technique." "What? No. I'm the princess. I don't do manual labor." Elaine burst into loud laughter this time, and Hayden joined her. Tessa grinned triumphantly. Moments like this, the warmth, the joking, the shared glances, felt almost too precious. Elaine tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, trying to hide her blush. Every time Hayden looked at her, something fluttered in her chest. She had long accepted that she liked him, maybe more than she was ready to admit. But falling for someone when your whole world was fragile? That was dangerous. As if sensing her spiraling thoughts, Hayden moved closer, his voice gentle. "Everything okay?" She nodded, forcing a smile. "Everything's fine. More than fine, actually. I just haven't felt this relaxed in a while." "You deserve to," he replied. His words landed with a softness she wasn't prepared for. After dinner, Hayden showed them a small garden area he was designing. He had begun adding benches and pathways, creating a peaceful space for Tessa to play or for Elaine to sit and read. It was thoughtful. Too thoughtful. It made her feel things she wasn't ready to name. Tessa ran ahead, chasing a butterfly while Hayden and Elaine walked side by side. "Hayden," Elaine began slowly, "you don't have to do all this." "I know," he said. "But I want to." "Why?" He paused. "Because you and Tessa have brought something into my life I didn't know I was missing." Her heart skipped. She swallowed hard. "I just don't want you to feel obligated to take care of us." He shook his head. "This isn't obligation. It's choice." His sincerity made her chest tighten. Before she could process it further, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A known number. Her heart froze. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Same number. "Everything okay?" Hayden asked. I don't know," Elaine whispered. When it rang a third time, she stepped aside and answered, her voice trembling. "Hello." A deep voice answered. "Elaine Monroe?" Her blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "This is Detective Sampson from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Are you able to talk?" Elaine's knees weakened. "Yes, I'm here." "What is this about?" The detective cleared his throat. "We have a situation involving someone connected to you. Are you familiar with a man named Mark Keller?" Elaine's breath caught. The name stabbed through her like a knife. Hayden, noticing her pale face, stepped closer in concern. "Yes," she whispered. He's my ex." The detective's voice grew grave. "Ma'am? Mark Keller is currently in custody. He was picked up last night after being found trespassing near a residential neighborhood. He had your address written on a piece of paper." Elaine's heart thudded violently. "What?" "And that's not all," the detective continued. "He told the arresting officers that he needed to correct a mistake. He refused to explain further." Elaine felt like the world had tilted on its axis. Sweat formed on her palms. Hayden placed a steady hand on her back. "Ma'am," the detective said, "I'm calling because you may need to consider protective measures. Even though he's currently detained, he could request bail." Elaine's voice cracked. "He's already looking for me?" "We believe so. I urge you to take precautions. We'll keep you updated." When the call ended, she stood frozen, staring at nothing. Hayden immediately stepped closer. "Elaine, what happened?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "It was Mark. He was caught. With our address." Shock flickered across Hayden's face before a storm of protectiveness took over. "You're not going home tonight." "I what?" "Hayden." "No," he interrupted softly but firmly. "I'm not taking chances. You and Tessa will stay here where it's safe. I don't want to disrupt." "This is not a disruption, Elaine." His voice was quiet but resolute. "Your safety matters. Tessa's safety matters." Her eyes welled. "I'm scared." He cupped her hands gently. "You're not alone anymore." Elaine hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that until now. Later that night, after Tessa fell asleep in the guest room, Elaine sat on the balcony of the estate, staring out at the moonlit hills. Her mind raced. Mark had found them. Even after years. Even after everything. She hugged her knees, feeling the familiar ache of fear pressing tight against her ribs. Hayden stepped outside, draping a blanket over her shoulders. "You're freezing." "Thank you," she whispered. He sat beside her, elbows resting on his knees. "You don't have to talk about it. But I'm here if you want to." Elaine nodded, eyes glistening. "I've spent years trying to be invisible. Trying not to disturb anyone. And now, it feels like my past is coming back with a vengeance." He turned toward her. "You've survived so much. You're stronger than you think." She breathed shakily. "I just want Tessa to have a normal life." "She will," Hayden said firmly. "Because I'll make sure nothing happens to either of you." She met his eyes, those steady, determined eyes, and felt something shift deep inside her. It wasn't just safety she saw in him. It was devotion. The kind she never expected to find. the kind that terrified her more than anything. Before she could respond, Hayden's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. "It's my head of security." Elaine's stomach twisted. "What's wrong?" Hayden answered quickly. "Yeah, what? When? Are you sure?" Elaine gripped the blanket, her heart hammering as she watched his expression darken with each passing second. When he hung up, his jaw clenched. "Hayden, what happened?" He turned to her slowly, a grave weight in his eyes. "Elaine, you're not going to like this. Someone was spotted on the security cameras near the back fence an hour ago. They couldn't get in, but they tried." Elaine's blood went ice cold. "Who?" she whispered. Hayden exhaled heavily. "We think it was Mark." For a long moment, Elaine couldn't breathe. The air around her felt thin, like the world had shrunk into a tunnel of fear. Hayden's voice echoed somewhere far away, but her mind refused to process anything except one horrifying truth. Mark was here. Not in a dream, not in a memory, not in a distant threat. Here. Near the estate. Near her daughter. Near everything that had finally felt safe. She pressed a hand against her mouth, fighting the scream clawing its way up her throat. Hayden stepped closer, placing both hands on her shoulders. "Elaine, look at me," he said gently but firmly. "You're safe. Tessa is safe. He didn't get in." "But he tried," she whispered, her voice shaking. "He tried, Hayden. He won't stop." "I won't let him get near you," he said. "Not ever." But that promise, no matter how sincere, did little to calm the panic spiraling through her. Fear wasn't logical. It didn't care about gates or guards or sophisticated cameras. Fear only reminded her of what she had already lost once, and what she could lose again. "Where's Tessa?" she asked suddenly, panic exploding again. "Inside." With 2 guards stationed at her door, Hayden reassured her. "She's asleep. Come. Completely fine." Elaine nodded, but her heart was pounding so wildly she felt dizzy. "I need to see her." "Of course." He walked beside her quickly but gently, matching her frantic pace as they hurried back into the mansion. The security team, 4 men in black, stood at attention near the hallway. Their expressions were alert, watchful. Elaine pushed open the bedroom door quietly. A soft night light cast a warm glow across the room. Tessa was curled up on the massive canopy bed, hugging her stuffed rabbit, her breathing slow and peaceful. Elaine exhaled shakily, tears filling her eyes. She knelt beside the bed, brushing a strand of hair from Tessa's forehead. "How does she sleep through everything?" Elaine whispered. Hayden stood behind her, his voice low. "Because she trusts you. Kids feel what their parents feel. And you've been strong in front of her." Elaine gave a sad smile. "I don't feel strong." Hayden crouched beside her. "Strength isn't the absence of fear. It's loving someone enough to protect them even when fear is trying to break you." Her throat tightened at his words. After another lingering moment, they stepped out of the room and closed the door, leaving the guards in place. Hayden led her downstairs to one of the sitting rooms where the security footage was displayed on a large monitor. The head of security, a broad-shouldered man named Briggs, greeted them with a nod. "Mr. Drake." "Ms. Monroe," he said. "We have the clip queued up." Hayden gestured for him to continue. The footage began, grainy, black and white, recorded from a camera facing the back perimeter fence. A dark figure approached, moving cautiously, his posture tense. Elaine's breath hitched. Even in low resolution, she recognized the shape of the man who had haunted her nightmares for years. His outline. His stride. The way he paused and looked over his shoulder as if expecting to be caught. Her entire body went cold. "That's him," she whispered. "That's Mark." Briggs nodded grimly. He approached the fence at exactly 9:13 p.m. tried to climb it. But the electric deterrent activated once he touched the top wire. Not enough to seriously injure, just enough to push him off. They watched as the figure fell backward abruptly, landing hard on the ground before scrambling up and disappearing into the trees. Elaine covered her mouth, shaking. He was actually trying to come inside." "It appears so," Briggs said. "We've already alerted local law enforcement. They're sending a patrol to sweep the area." Hayden wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. She didn't resist. She felt small, fragile, and exhausted. But one question pierced through her fear. Hayden, how did he even know where you live? Hayden stiffened almost imperceptibly. That, he said quietly, is something we're trying to figure out. Elaine stared at him, confused. You mean, someone gave him the address? Hayden exchanged a glance with Briggs, one that made her stomach twist. Briggs cleared his throat. Ms. Monroe, we reviewed some access logs from earlier this week. And, well, we found something unusual. What does that mean? She asked. Briggs hesitated. Yesterday afternoon, before you arrived for dinner, someone attempted to access the guest registry system from an unauthorized account. Elaine blinked. Guest registry? Hayden explained gently, whenever someone visits the estate, their name, number, and occasional notes are recorded for safety. Your name was there from the first time you visited, only visible to the internal system. She felt her heartbeat quicken again. Are you saying someone hacked it? To find my information? Briggs nodded. They didn't fully get through, but we believe they may have seen enough to learn your general location. Elaine felt sick. Who would do that? We don't know yet, Hayden said. His jaw clenched. But we will find out. The tension in the room tightened like a bowstring. Hayden turned to Briggs. Increase perimeter teams. Double the round frequency. And notify me immediately if anything else happens. Yes, sir. When Briggs left, Elaine sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. This is all my fault. No, Hayden said sharply. He knelt in front of her, lifting her chin gently. Don't say that. The blame is his, not yours. He made the choice to hunt you, to break the law, to put you in danger. But it's my past, she whispered. If anything happens to Tessa, nothing will, he said firmly. I promise you. Elaine looked into his eyes full of determination, warmth, and something else she was afraid to acknowledge. Hayden, why are you doing all this? She asked softly. Why go this far for us? He didn't flinch, didn't waver. Because you matter to me, Elaine, he said quietly. And because Tessa matters to me. More than I expected. More than I'm prepared for. Her breath caught. She wasn't ready for this. For feelings like these. For a future she wasn't sure she deserved. But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from outside the sitting room. Both of them froze. Stay here, Hayden said quickly. No, she whispered, clutching his sleeve. What if? Elaine, it's okay. It could just be a guard dropping something. But the look in his eyes said he wasn't sure. He signaled to the 2 guards stationed nearby, and they all moved toward the hallway. Another crash. This time louder. The guard at the front pressed his hand to his earpiece. We have movement in the east wing. Possible breach. Elaine felt her stomach lurch. Hayden, she whispered, her voice trembling. Is someone inside? The guard listened again. Sir. The motion sensors indicate someone has entered through the side garden door. Elaine's heart stopped. The guard added, voice tightening. And whoever it is, they're heading toward the guest rooms. Elaine felt the world drop out beneath her. Tessa, she cried. Tessa. Elaine's scream tore through the hallway like a knife. She didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for guards, didn't wait for anything. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. Pure instinct, pure terror. She sprinted down the hall toward the east wing, her breath tight, her heart beating so violently it blurred her vision. Elaine, wait. Hayden shouted behind her. But nothing could slow her. Her baby was in danger. The lights in the hallway flickered, the estate's emergency sensor mode triggering automatically. Shadows stretched across the marble floor, making every corner look like a hiding place for something waiting to strike. 2 guards caught up quickly and moved ahead of her, forming a barrier. Ms. Monroe, stay behind us, one ordered. But she hardly heard them. Panic had swallowed every rational thought. A shrill alarm suddenly erupted, short, piercing beeps that echoed through the estate. Hayden pressed the comm device in his ear. Briggs? Report. Briggs' voice came through, tense and rapid. We've confirmed a breach. Side garden door lock was forced open. We have one silhouette on the inside cameras, moving fast. Heading where? Hayden snapped. Pause. Then, toward the guest rooms. Elaine's blood turned to ice. They rounded another corner and she nearly slipped on the polished floor. Hayden caught her arm without stopping. His grip was firm, steady, grounding her for half a second. Elaine will get her. Stay with me. She nodded weakly, but her legs kept moving too fast to control. The guards raised their weapons, non-lethal security rifles meant to incapacitate intruders. Their footsteps thundered against the hardwood floors as they neared the guest hallway. Then they heard it. A faint sound. Soft. Muffled. A child's whimper. Elaine's heart shattered. That's her, she whispered. That's Tessa. Hayden's eyes darkened. Move. The guards hit the hallway at full speed. One reached the guest bedroom door first, closed but not locked. He signaled. 3 fingers. 2. 1. They burst inside, weapons raised. The room was empty. The bed covers were thrown to the side. The window curtains fluttered from the breeze of an open balcony door. Elaine choked on a sob. No, 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 no. Tessa, she cried out again, her voice breaking in half. Hayden rushed to the balcony, scanning the dark garden below. Briggs, we need camera feed on the east balcony now. Static crackled in his earpiece. Switching, give me 6 seconds. We don't have 6 seconds. Hayden roared. Elaine clutched the doorframe for support, her nails digging into the carved wood. The night air felt colder than death. Mom? The faint voice drifted from somewhere nearby. Elaine spun. Tessa? But before she could move, one of the guards held out an arm. Ma'am, stay behind us. We don't know where. Another noise interrupted him. A footstep. Coming from the adjoining bathroom. The guard approached slowly, weapon raised. He pressed his back to the wall, turned the knob silently, and pushed the door open with his foot. The bathroom was dimly lit by a nightlight. And in the center of the marble floor. Mommy? Tessa sat shaking beside the bathtub, her tiny body curled tight, hugging her rabbit doll to her chest. Elaine didn't wait for clearance. She dropped to her knees with a sob so raw it tore from her lungs. Tessa, baby, I'm here. Mommy's here. She pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her so tightly it was as if she feared she'd disappear. Tessa sobbed against her shoulder. I was scared, the little girl cried. There was a noise. I hid like you taught me. Elaine's tears soaked her daughter's hair. You did so good, sweetheart. You did exactly the right thing. But Hayden wasn't smiling. He scanned the room again, his instincts razor-sharp, eyes narrowing. Something was wrong. The guard sensed it too. The window was closed. The balcony undisturbed. The child unharmed. So where was the intruder? Briggs, what are the camera feeds showing? Hayden demanded. Briggs' voice came back immediately, urgency rising. Sir, we have a problem. What problem? The silhouette we saw? It's gone. How is it gone? Hayden snapped. Vanished from the cameras. Completely. Last sighting was 2 minutes ago, east hallway near your office. After that, nothing. Elaine's head shot up. Your office? Why would someone go there? Hayden didn't answer. Because he knew. His office wasn't just where he worked. It was where he kept personal files, including security details, including visitor logs, including the information someone would need to find Elaine again. A chill ran through him. Briggs, Hayden said slowly, check the office. Now. Already on it, wait. Static. Then. Sir, the office door is open. Elaine felt her stomach twist painfully. And, Briggs continued, voice dripping with dread, someone forced your private safe. Hayden's blood ran cold. What was taken? Another pause, a long heavy one. Then Briggs spoke again, voice tight. A USB drive labeled Monroe Files. Elaine's body went rigid. Hayden inhaled sharply. That drive has all the records about Elaine and Tessa. Addresses, emergency contacts. Medical history, Briggs added. Photographs. School district information. Everything. Elaine stared at Hayden, horror filling her eyes. "He's not trying to get inside," she whispered. "He's trying to get around you." The reality hit her like a sledgehammer. She wasn't just unsafe here. No matter where she ran, Mark could find her now. Her breath quickened. "Hayden, what do we do? What if he goes after my sister? What if he goes to Tessa's old school? What if—" "Elaine," Hayden said firmly, grabbing her hands, "we will protect everyone you love. I promise you." But his voice held a strain that hadn't been there before. Because now he was no longer fighting a desperate ex with a temper. He was fighting a man with information. A man with nothing left to lose. A man who had outsmarted a billionaire's entire security team. Elaine pulled Tessa tighter, trembling. "Why is he doing this?" she whispered. "What does he want from me?" Hayden looked toward the window, his jaw tightening. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But I'm going to find out." He stood to leave, but before he could take a step, Briggs' voice burst through the calm. "Sir, we have something else." Hayden froze. "What now?" Briggs' next words dropped like a bomb. "We found a message on your office monitor. Typed and left on the screen." Hayden's eyes narrowed. "Read it." Briggs hesitated. "It says, 'You can't protect what isn't yours.'" Elaine's heart stopped. And then Briggs added, voice shaking, "And it's signed, MK." Elaine sat on the edge of the guest bed, holding Tessa close as the little girl drifted back to sleep. The crisis moments before had drained every ounce of strength she had left. Her hands still trembled. Her thoughts still spun. And her heart still felt like it had been wrapped in barbed wire. Hayden stood by the doorway, silent, watching them with an expression she couldn't decipher. Some combination of protectiveness, frustration, and fear. It unsettled her more than anything Mark had done. Finally, when Tessa's breathing evened out, Elaine gently laid her back on the pillows, kissed her forehead, and tucked her in. She stepped into the hallway and closed the door softly behind her. Hayden waited. But for the first time since she'd met him, his eyes didn't look confident. They looked haunted. "Let's talk downstairs," he said quietly. "She needs her rest." Elaine followed him down the sweeping staircase, her pulse thudding in her ears. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling strangely cold despite the warm air inside the estate. As they reached the private lounge, Hayden closed the door and turned to face her. "Elaine," he began, "there's something I should have told you earlier." Her stomach tightened. "That never sounds good." He exhaled sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. A rare moment of vulnerability. "When Mark escaped custody 8 months ago, he didn't disappear the way you were told." Elaine blinked. "What do you mean?" "He wasn't missing." Hayden looked directly at her. "He was looking for you." A chill skittered up her spine. "He contacted people from his past," Hayden continued. "Old associates, debt collectors, a few dangerous people. My team picked up these signals months ago. Why didn't you tell me?" Elaine whispered, anger and betrayal mixing inside her. "Because you were already living in fear," Hayden said. "And I didn't want to push you into panic. Not until I had something solid. Not until I could guarantee your protection." "But you couldn't guarantee anything," she said softly. "No," he admitted. "I couldn't." For a moment, neither spoke. The tension between them pressed heavily on the room. Finally, Elaine sank into a chair, her knees barely supporting her. "I thought coming here would make us safe. I really believed it." "It did," Hayden said firmly. "He didn't get in tonight. And with the entire property on lockdown, he won't get in later." "That's not what this is about," she whispered. Hayden's expression softened. "Then what is it about?" Elaine swallowed hard. The truth hurt to voice, but she forced it out anyway. "You should have told me what you knew. You should have trusted me with that." Hayden's jaw tightened. "I was trying to protect you." "I get that," she said. "I do. But secrets, especially ones about my life, my child, my past, those don't protect me. They blind me." Hayden stepped closer. "I didn't mean to keep you in the dark." "But you did," she said quietly. He stopped, inches from her, and she could see the strain in his eyes, an ache that matched her own. "Elaine," he said softly. You and Tessa mean more to me than I'm good at saying. Her breath caught. But I don't want to scare you off by admitting it too soon, he added. I've never cared like this before. Not about anyone. She stared at him, heart pounding. I'm not scared of you, Hayden, she whispered. He hesitated. Then what are you scared of? She looked away, blinking back tears. I'm scared of losing someone again. I'm scared of Tessa growing attached to you and then having everything ripped away. Hayden's expression softened. He knelt in front of her, placing a hand gently on hers. I'm not going anywhere, he said. But she shook her head. You can't promise that. No one can. Mark's out there. And now he has everything he needs to find us. Anywhere. Anytime. Even if we run. A heavy silence settled. For the first time, Elaine saw fear on Hayden's face, not fear for himself but for her. For Tessa. For all the ways he might fail to protect them. We won't run, Hayden said quietly. We'll fight back. She let out a shaky breath. How? I'm going to leverage every resource I have. My legal team. My security. My contacts in federal agencies. His voice hardened. Mark thinks he's clever. He thinks he has the advantage. But he's just made the biggest mistake of his life. Elaine stared at him. And what mistake is that? Hayden's eyes burned with determination. He made you feel unsafe in my home. Something in his tone made a shiver run up her spine. But before either of them could speak again, the lounge door swung open. Briggs stepped inside, pale and sweating, his hand gripping a tablet tightly. Sir, he said breathlessly. You need to see this. Hayden straightened immediately. What is it? Briggs swallowed. The intruder, he didn't leave. Elaine froze. Hayden's expression sharpened. Explain. Briggs turned the tablet around. The screen showed live security footage of the West Courtyard. A motion alert blinked red at the top corner. At first, the image looked empty, just shadows and the faint glow of garden lights. Then the camera angle shifted. And Elaine's blood turned to ice. A figure stood near the fountain. Still, unmoving, watching the house. Even in the darkness, she knew the posture. Knew the stance. Knew the height. It was him. Her breath caught. Mark? But Briggs shook his head violently. That's what we thought. But look at this. He tapped the screen. The image zoomed in, sharpening enough to reveal. Not Mark. Someone younger. Thinner. Wearing a hood pulled tightly over their face. Who is that? Hayden demanded. Briggs exhaled shakily. We don't know. But whoever it is, they're holding something. He zoomed in further. The object in the stranger's hand glinted under the courtyard lights. A phone. Its screen was bright, displaying a single message in bold white letters. The camera zoom caught just enough to read it. Elaine gasped. Hayden's eyes darkened like thunder. Because the message said, He's closer than you think. The figure raised their head toward the camera, then turned and sprinted into the trees. Elaine felt the room spin. Hayden immediately stepped forward. Briggs, lock every gate. Floodlights on. Track that man. Briggs ran from the room. Elaine clutched Hayden's arm. Hayden, what does that mean? He's closer than you think? Who is that person? Why would they know Mark? Hayden looked at her, his expression unusually grave. I don't know, he whispered. But she could tell. He had a theory. And it terrified him. Elaine swallowed hard. Hayden, tell me what you're thinking. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and said quietly, I don't think Mark is working alone anymore. Elaine's heart stopped. And Hayden added, voice sinking into a chilling whisper. And whoever that person was out there, they're not warning us. His eyes locked on hers. They're helping him. The storm arrived just after sunset, sweeping across Santa Clara with a heavy, restless wind that rattled the windows of Carson Hale's estate. Thunder rolled like distant drums, the sky flashing with sharp bursts of white light. Inside the mansion, however, an even bigger storm brewed, one made of fear, uncertainty, and secrets that could no longer be contained. Naomi sat on the edge of the sofa in Carson's living room, her hands trembling as she held a mug of untouched tea. She stared at the hardwood floor, heart pounding, replaying Madison Brinkley's words over and over. He's coming for you, Naomi. He knows where you are. She had hoped Madison was bluffing or dramatizing, but the look in her eyes had been too real. Keisha watched her mother with tight, worried brows. Mom, please tell us what's going on. What did Madison mean? Who's coming? Naomi swallowed hard. She could feel Carson's gaze on her too, steady but burning with concern. She hadn't planned to say the truth tonight. She had hoped for more time, for a miracle even, but time had run out. His name, Naomi whispered, her lips barely moving, is Victor Parrish. Carson straightened. Parrish? The real estate developer in Phoenix? The one under federal investigation. Naomi nodded weakly. Keisha blinked. Mom, how do you know someone like that? Naomi's throat tightened. Because I used to work for him. Carson leaned forward. As what? Naomi closed her eyes, fighting tears. As his executive assistant. A heavy silence fell. The storm outside roared louder, as if echoing her confession. I worked for Victor for almost 3 years, she continued, her voice shaking. When I first joined, I thought he was brilliant, powerful, a man who built everything from nothing. But I didn't know what he was really doing. Carson exchanged a tense look with Keisha. What was he doing, Naomi? Money laundering, Naomi whispered. Fraud, threats, bribery, things I didn't want to be part of. But once I was involved, once I knew too much, he said I was trapped. Keisha gasped softly. Mom? He told me if I ever left, he'd destroy me. Not just professionally, personally. And when I finally decided I'd had enough and walked out, he made good on his threats. She wrung her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. He leaked lies about me online, said I stole from him, sabotaged his business. I lost job after job. Then he made anonymous calls to my landlords. We kept getting evicted. Everything in our lives began falling apart. One day we woke up and realized we were homeless because of him. Keisha's lips trembled. You never told me. Naomi shook her head, tears spilling into her lap. I wanted you to have hope. I didn't want you to carry my pain. I wanted you to feel safe, at least emotionally. I never wanted you to know the darkness that chased us. Carson's jaw clenched. And why is he after you now? Naomi breathed shakily. Months ago the FBI tracked me down. They wanted to question me about Victor's business dealings. I didn't realize they were already building a case. I told them what I knew. I didn't think he'd find out. She buried her face in her hands. But he did. Keisha froze, eyes widening. So you're saying he's coming because you told the truth? Yes. Naomi's voice cracked. Madison worked for Victor too. She warned me. She said he's furious, desperate. He wants me silent, forever. Carson rose to his feet, fists clenched. He's not touching you. Not while you're under my roof. Naomi looked up, eyes swollen. Carson, he's dangerous. You don't understand the kind of people he has behind him. Carson stared back, fire in his eyes. And you don't understand the kind of power I have. There was no arrogance in his voice. No ego. Just certainty. Keisha suddenly stood, pacing anxiously. So what do we do? I'd call the police? Move to another state? What? Before she could finish, Carson's phone buzzed sharply on the table. He glanced at the screen, and his face darkened. Naomi's chest tightened. What is it? Carson picked up the phone slowly. A message from my security team at the gate. Keisha felt her stomach drop. Someone's here? Carson nodded grimly. A black Escalade just pulled up. No plates. Naomi's body went cold. Oh God. Carson tapped his earpiece, voice shifting into command mode. Lock down the perimeter. Send 2 guards to the main gate. No one comes in unless I say so. He listened for a moment, then frowned. What? Keisha whispered fearfully. They said the driver isn't stepping out, Carson replied. He's just sitting there, waiting. The storm thundered again. Naomi's breathing quickened. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Carson, this is my fault. He's putting you in danger. I'll go outside and talk to him. Carson grabbed her shoulders firmly. Absolutely not. Carson. You are not sacrificing yourself. You are not going out there alone. If he has something to say, he says it to me. Naomi's lips trembled. You don't understand the kind of man he is. And you don't understand the kind of man I am, Carson said quietly. The intensity in his voice made Naomi's tears spill again, not from fear, but from the realization that someone was finally standing for her instead of against her. Keisha stepped closer to her mother and hugged her tightly. We're in this together, Mom. You don't fight alone anymore. Just then Carson's phone buzzed again. Another message from security. He opened it. His eyes narrowed. What now? Naomi whispered. Carson inhaled slowly. They say the driver is waving something out the window. A piece of paper. What kind of paper? Keisha asked. Carson held up the phone so they could see the photo his security sent. Naomi staggered backward, hand over her mouth. It was a printed photo. A photo of her. Standing outside Carson's company headquarters 2 days ago. Carson's jaw tightened. He's trying to prove he's watching you. That he can get close. Naomi felt sick. Carson, please, don't let him take me. Carson turned to her with a reassuring firmness. Victor Parrish is not taking anyone tonight. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope, sliding it across the table. Naomi frowned. What's that? My emergency legal packet, Carson said. Documents, evidence, contacts, and names of people who owe me favors. If something happens to me, if Victor tries anything, you'll use that. Naomi's breath caught. Carson, I don't want anything to happen to you. Nothing will, he said calmly. But it's time you understand that you have protection. Real protection. Keisha grabbed the envelope too, clutching it like a shield. We're not running again. We're not scared anymore. Outside, lightning illuminated the driveway for a brief second. And in that split second, a shadowy figure stepped out of the Escalade. Tall, broad, holding an umbrella, walking toward the gate. Security reports movement, Carson said, reading another message. Someone's coming up the driveway. The wind howled against the windows. Naomi's pulse hammered in her ears. Is it him? She whispered. Carson watched the live video feed on his phone. But his expression changed. Confusion. Then shock. Then something like disbelief. He slowly turned the phone toward Naomi and Keisha. And both of them froze. Because the man walking toward the estate wasn't Victor Parrish. It was someone else. Someone Naomi hadn't seen in 12 years. Someone she thought was dead. Carson whispered. Naomi, who is David Turner? Naomi's knees buckled. Keisha gasped. Mom, who is he? Naomi stared at the screen, eyes wide, breath gone. Her voice escaped in a trembling whisper. Keisha's father. And the man I believe died when she was a baby. For a long, suspended moment, Naomi couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. She stood frozen, staring at the live security feed on Carson's phone as the man she once mourned walked slowly up the rain-soaked driveway. He was older, broader in the shoulders, his once boyish face sharpened by time and survival. His hair, once jet black, now carried threads of silver near the temples. But the eyes were unmistakable. She would know them anywhere. Soft brown. Steady. The eyes of a man she once thought she would spend forever with. The eyes of David Turner. Keisha clutched her mother's arm. Mom, what does this mean? You said he died. You told me my dad died before I turned 1. Naomi swallowed, tears already forming. I believed he did. Carson kept his voice calm, but even he sounded shaken. Naomi, we need to know what happened. Why would he be here? And why now? She forced herself to inhale. Then another. Then one more, as if pulling air out of the storm itself. Let him in, she whispered. Carson nodded at security, giving the command. Bring him to the foyer. No escort beyond that point. Naomi wiped her face, trying to steady herself as the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. Footsteps that carried 12 years of pain, confusion, and unfinished truth. Keisha squeezed her hand tightly. I'm right here, Mom. The front doors opened. A guard stepped in, rain dripping from his slick jacket. "Mr. Hale," he announced, "this man insists he knows Ms. Cole. Says it's urgent." Naomi lifted her head. And then, David stepped into the light. The years had changed him but not erased him. His expression shifted the moment he saw Naomi, shock, relief, guilt, grief, all at once. Then slowly his gaze moved to Keisha. His breath caught. She's so big," he whispered. "She looks just like—" "Don't," Naomi said quickly, her voice trembling. "Don't say her name." David's face tightened, but he nodded respectfully. Carson stepped slightly in front of Naomi and Keisha, not blocking them but shielding them, protecting them. The message was clear: be careful. David raised both hands. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. Please. I need to explain." Naomi's eyes were cold, wounded. "Explain? You left us. Then I was told you died. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" David's face crumpled. "Naomi, No," she stepped forward, voice cracking. "You don't get to talk first. I lost everything: jobs, stability, home. I raised our daughter alone. I buried the idea of you. I let her cry for a father she thought she'd never meet. So no, David. You don't talk first." The room went silent. Keisha looked between them, tears gathering but not yet falling. "Mom, I want to hear what he has to say. Please." Naomi's heart twisted painfully, but she nodded. "Fine," she whispered. "Talk." David exhaled shakily. 12 years ago, I was working as a financial analyst for Parrish Holdings." Naomi's blood ran cold. Carson stiffened. Keisha's jaw dropped. "You worked for Victor Parrish?" Naomi demanded. David nodded. "I didn't know who he really was at first. None of us did. But I found discrepancies in his company accounts, cash flows that didn't match real revenue, hidden transfers, payments to offshore accounts. When I confronted him about it, thinking it was an accounting error." He paused, swallowing. "He threatened me." Naomi blinked. "Threatened? How?" "He told me accidents happen. That people who poked their noses where they didn't belong tended to disappear. I was young, naive. I didn't understand the scale of the danger until I found out one of my co-workers had died in what the police called a car malfunction." Keisha covered her mouth. David continued softly. "I tried to protect you both. I thought if I brought what I found to the local authorities, they'd help. But someone in the station tipped Victor off. The next day, I came home to find a note pinned to our front door." Naomi felt her knees weaken. "A note?" David nodded. "He wrote, 'Leave or your family pays.'" A sob escaped her throat. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come to me?" David's eyes filled. "Because that same night, a man broke into our apartment while you and Keisha were asleep. He held a gun to my head and said Victor wanted the message delivered in person. He told me I had 24 hours to disappear. If I ever contacted you again, he'd send someone else, someone who wouldn't stop at threatening." Keisha's eyes reddened. "So you just left?" David's voice cracked. "I left because staying meant you both would die." Naomi shook her head, tears falling freely. "And the police saying you were dead? The car explosion? The funeral report?" "Fabricated," David whispered. "Victor staged it. A burned vehicle with a body that they claimed was mine. He wanted you to stop looking for me. Wanted me erased." Naomi's breathing became unsteady. "So all these years, you've been alive?" David nodded slowly. "I've been in hiding. Working small contract jobs under false names. Moving state to state. Until 2 months ago." "What changed?" Carson asked sharply. David looked at him, then at Naomi. "I was contacted by someone in the FBI. An agent investigating Victor. She said they were building a case, and that you, Naomi, were critical to it. That you were in danger because Victor found out you spoke to them." Naomi's heart dropped. "So, you came back because?" David's voice broke. "Because I couldn't hide anymore knowing he was coming for you. Or our daughter. I came to warn you, to help you disappear." Keisha stepped back, shaking. "Disappear? You want us to run again? It's the only way to stay alive." David insisted. You don't understand the kind of reach Victor has. He's not just a corrupt businessman, he's connected to people who can make threats disappear without a trace. Carson's voice hardened. Naomi and Keisha are not disappearing. I have the resources, security, and legal power to protect them. Victor Parrish is not untouchable. David's expression turned grimmer. You think your money scares him? Carson, he's not afraid of rich men. He buries them. Carson took a threatening step forward. I don't care who he buries. He won't touch them. Naomi suddenly shouted, Enough! Both men froze. Her voice shook with exhaustion and pain. I have been running my whole life. From poverty. From homelessness. From danger. From heartbreak. I won't run anymore. Keisha nodded, tears streaming. Me neither. David looked wounded. Naomi, I only want to save you. You don't get to decide what saving us looks like anymore, she whispered. The room fell quiet again. Only the storm outside filled the silence. Then Carson asked the question hanging in the air. David, why come to my estate? How did you even find us? David hesitated. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a single folded sheet of paper. He handed it to Naomi. She unfolded it. Her blood froze. It was a printed email. From Madison Brinkley. To David Turner. Subject, she needs you. The message was short. Naomi and Keisha are with Carson Hale. Victor is after her. If you want to protect them, go now. Naomi's chest tightened with dread. Madison wasn't just warning her. She was manipulating everything. David looked at her with pain-filled eyes. I didn't know she was working for Victor. I thought she was helping me. Carson stepped closer to Naomi. Madison's playing both sides. But it was Keisha who whispered the words that sent chills through the room. That means, Madison knows exactly where we are. Lightning struck outside. The lights flickered. And in that moment, Carson's phone buzzed. A message from security. One sentence. Sir, another vehicle just arrived at the gate. Before Carson could respond, the lights cut out completely, plunging the mansion into darkness. And from somewhere outside, a single voice called out through a megaphone. Naomi Cole. Come out. Now. Thunder cracked over Santa Clara like a war drum as the mansion went dark, every light suddenly swallowed by the storm. The silence that followed felt thick, dangerous. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. Keisha grabbed her mother's arm. Carson straightened like a man preparing for battle. Then the voice boomed again from outside, amplified through a megaphone. Naomi Cole. Come out or we'll come in. David's eyes widened. That's one of Victor's men. Carson turned sharply toward the window. Security should have intercepted them. That's what scares me, David whispered. Carson pulled out his phone, but the screen remained black. Power was out. Signal was down. The estate was isolated. Naomi's heart raced. Carson, we have to hide. But he shook his head. No. We fight this. David stepped closer. You don't know the kind of people Victor employs. These men don't negotiate. And I don't run, Carson said firmly. Naomi felt torn, between the man she loved now and the man who had come back to save her. Between two pasts, two futures, two different kinds of fear. Keisha looked between all three adults. We stay together. Right. But before anyone could respond, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the house. Glass shattering. Footsteps. They were already inside. Carson immediately pushed Naomi and Keisha behind him. Safe room. Now. But, Naomi began. No arguments, Carson insisted. David with me. David nodded, adrenaline charging his features. He wasn't the man she remembered, young, hopeful, untested. He was hardened, forced into survival, and for better or worse, useful now. The four of them rushed through the dark hallways, lit only by white flashes of lightning breaking through windows. Every thunderclap made Naomi flinch. Every shadow looked like a man with a gun. Keisha whispered, Mom, if something happens? No, Naomi said fiercely. Nothing is happening to you. Not tonight. Not ever. They reached the elevator door hidden behind a bookshelf, Carson's private safe room access point. He pressed his thumb against the biometric scanner. Nothing happened. David cursed under his breath. Power outage. It won't open. Carson clenched his jaw. There's a manual override in my office. Your office is across the courtyard. Naomi cried. But another crash from downstairs forced their hand. They ran. Rain pounded the skylights above as they sprinted through the long glass hallway connecting the main house to Carson's office wing. Their footsteps echoed loudly, maybe too loudly. Halfway across, a sharp bang sounded behind them. A gunshot. The glass wall beside Naomi shattered, spraying shards across the floor. She yelped, ducking as Carson pulled her close, shielding her with his body. Keisha screamed, but David dragged her behind a marble column. Stay down. Another gunshot. Then another. The attackers were closing in. Carson shouted over the storm, "Move!" They pushed forward, slipping over wet tile as rain blew through broken glass. Naomi felt her lungs burning, but she forced her legs to run. Keisha stumbled, but David grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. They reached Carson's office, slamming the heavy oak door behind them. Carson engaged the mechanical lock, an antique but strong. Inside, the room was pitch black except for flashes of lightning illuminating the shelves of legal books, framed awards, and the large mahogany desk at the center. The air smelled like old leather and danger. Carson moved quickly to the wall behind his desk, searching with his hands. The override panel, it should be right. His fingers stopped. He froze. Naomi's voice trembled. Carson? What's wrong? He slowly pulled something off the wall. A small black device. Blinking red. Naomi's stomach dropped. What is that? David answered grimly. A tracker. Someone planted it here. Carson cursed under his breath. Madison. Has to be. She came to my office 2 weeks ago asking about the scholarship fund. I thought. A loud explosion shook the door. The attackers were trying to break it down. David stepped back, panic rising. We don't have time. Carson ripped the override panel open, pulling out a key and small crank. Then buy me some. David rushed to the door, bracing it with his shoulder as something slammed hard into it again. Naomi grabbed Keisha, holding her tight. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. But she wasn't sure she believed it. Carson jammed the key into the wall mechanism and began turning the crank. The distant hum of gears grinding open was faint, but real. We have 30 seconds. Carson shouted. 30 seconds too long. David yelled back. The door cracked down the middle. Naomi screamed. Keisha sobbed. A rifle barrel poked through the broken part of the door. David reacted instantly. He kicked the rifle, knocking it out of the attacker's grip. Go. Now. Carson yelled. The safe room door is open. Move. He grabbed Naomi's arm, pulling her toward the hidden passageway behind a rotating shelf. Keisha stumbled in behind her. Carson turned back. David. Come on. But David looked at them, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. Resolve. Sacrifice. Peace. Go, he said softly. I'll hold them off. Naomi's voice cracked. No. David, come with us. But David shook his head. If they get past this door before it's closed, you all die. Let me protect you this time. Let me fix something. He pushed the shelf closed from the outside. David. Naomi sobbed, pounding on the wall. Don't do this. Carson grabbed her, pulling her deeper into the safe room. Naomi, we have to close it. Keisha screamed, Dad, please? But the heavy steel door slid shut, locking them in. Naomi fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Keisha collapsed beside her. Carson stood there, jaw tight, staring at the sealed door. They heard muffled shouting from outside. Gunshots. Then, silence. A long, horrible silence. Naomi pressed her forehead to the cold steel. David, please, please be alive. No answer came. Carson knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her. Naomi, I'm so sorry. Keisha cried into her mother's lap. Finally, after what felt like hours, Carson checked the emergency monitor in the safe room. Backup power restored only to this room allowed live security feeds to flicker on. The attackers were gone. David lay on the floor of Carson's office, unmoving. But then, Keisha gasped. Naomi covered her mouth. David's chest rose. Barely. He's alive. Keisha cried. Mom, he's alive. Carson immediately activated the emergency beacon. Medical team is on their way. Naomi's tears flowed freely. Oh, thank God, thank God. Within minutes, Carson's private security flooded the estate, followed by medical responders. They breached the safe room, guiding Naomi and Keisha out. Naomi ran to David, falling to her knees beside him. He was pale, bleeding, but breathing. He smiled faintly up at her. See? I told you. I'd protect you. Naomi sobbed. Why? Why risk your life? He reached weakly for Keisha's hand. For her, he whispered. For both of you. So you never have to run again. Carson stood behind them, his voice low but resolute. David saved all of us. Then he looked at his security chief. Find Victor Parrish. Tonight. The man nodded. Already on it, sir. As medics lifted David onto a stretcher, Keisha kissed his forehead. Don't die. Please don't die. David smiled softly. Not planning to. Naomi grabbed Carson's hand, squeezing it tightly. For the first time, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. The future. And control of her life again. The storm outside began to quiet, as if the world itself was finally letting them breathe. And Naomi whispered into the calm. It's over. But Carson, watching the rain ease over the shattered mansion grounds, answered quietly. No. It's just beginning.